Oh boy.
Trav here, just to remind you that every new active subscriber directly contributes to how quickly we can produce these kinds of conversations for you. So please take a second to subscribe, smash that like button on the video, and make sure you leave us a comment in the comment section. Now please enjoy Konstantin Kisin versus Destiny.
Are you the same as you were 10 or 15 years ago? What do you mean by that? The same. You're not unchanged, right?
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
Your guys' definitions for everything change at all points in time. That's always the issue. That's always the
rock music and everything. Oh my God.
Us guys.
Conservatives.
I'm not a conservative.
I know you say you're not, but are you sure you're not running for a political party right now? Because that was the most politician answer I've ever heard in my life of a conservative view on foreign policy. Over the past 5 years, so you do this thing where you're like, well, I have to choose between two things.
I'm not going to talk if you keep interrupting me. I'm not interested in this. Whatever this is. You are.
I'm literally not. I'm asking you a question. You just refuse to answer. This is the game. How did I do it again? I'm asking you a clear question. You can't give me an answer.
I'm not going to talk to you unless you listen to what I'm saying as well as me listening to what you're saying.
Oh, people down over here.
Okay, good.
2 people.
Welcome to Pangburn. Are we ready to go? What I hope to see on the Pangburn stage here tonight is what I always want to see, and that's good faith, helpful discourse. The Pangburn maxim, the communication maxim, is that good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. That's what we want to see. And ultimately, I hope this conversation tonight, when it's shared with the world, will maximize well-being for humanity in one way or another. So, in saying that, please welcome to the stage Konstantin Kisin and Destiny!
That's us. 1, see the other guy?
Nope, not yet. Yep, over here. 2.
Can national identity survive
There should be another.
immigration?
I don't think so.
I guess I'll kind of take the reins on this. I feel like when I hear people talk about things related to open borders, mass migration, or national identity, there's kind of 2 questions that always pop up in my mind, and I never hear people actually kind of tack down what they mean when they say these things. So the first thing is, for national identity, I don't know as much about the various identities that exist in the UK, but I know for the United States, to try to find an overlap between identity from...
Just as a quick thing, I'm too lazy to look this up, but people have them in chat. We had a list of topics that this debate was supposed to be about, okay? Everything was related.
I'm getting shot.
Oh, I'm getting shot from behind, so good luck.
I'm running.
What do you mean you're running? Hold on, I lit the fuck out of that dude. To the left. Oh, now I'm dead on the right. Oh, he's right behind me. I pinged him. He's running up to you. He's running up to you from behind. Yeah, you suck! I'm just kidding. Nice try.
No, that's alright.
We had a list of topics. Every single thing was U.S. centric. So I had a feeling that this would get pulled into British politics a lot, which it did. But for him to feign ignorance on the U.S. part of this, or for it to be so much about British shit, it was completely outside of the 3 questions we had for this debate. But well, relatively outside. I guess the first one I think was, can the West survive mass migration or whatever? But like the third one was about Trump in particular, and I think the second one had to do with wokeism, which was also like just retarded.
Gay guy in San Francisco versus like a farm.
Do what? Oh, gotta be careful.
You just...
or in Iowa or something. There's not many commonalities there to speak of when you talk about national identity, especially when I'm thinking of it in the context of what type of immigrant would threaten that whatever unified identity, whatever those 2 things are. So I'm kind of curious, I guess. I want to demand moderation. I think I've thought about this a lot, and I had like prior obligations for these that I'm now exhausted all of, so I don't have any more debates that are coming up that I've pre-agreed to or whatever. I think for the future of these types of events, I think for the next debate that I do, unless I'm invited by a totally unrelated third party to do a big event and I don't want to miss it, but if I'm ever setting anything up or have any say over it, I think I'm going to demand some kind of like moderated environment, so that, because I don't think in this format, it's just, if somebody decides that they're going to throw a temper tantrum and they don't want to engage, I just don't think there's anything you can really do about that. So when I think about national identity, when I think about being threatened by people, my first question is, what is the national identity that we're trying to protect for the United States or for the United Kingdom? And then when we talk about like migration or mass migration, what do we mean exactly when we say that?
Well, okay. So there's 2 questions there. What is national identity and what is immigration? Why don't we start in reverse and talk about immigration? Take Britain as an example, right? So I've lived in this country. I came to Britain it was just about Russia. Prior to that, it was the Soviet Union in 1996. So let's go back to 1991, because that's the data when we have the census. 1991. What has happened in the last 35 years? So in the last 35 years ago, this country had a population of 58 million people. Today, the population is 70 million. Almost all of that is due to mass immigration. So the population of Britain, the immigrant population of Britain, that's first generation, people who've arrived, went from 4 million to 12 million in the space of 35 years, right? It trebled in 35 years. Now, you might say, well, is that a lot? Is that a little? Who knows? That is more people, in the last 35 years, more people came to Britain than came to Britain in the previous 2 millennia. So more people in 35 years than had come in 2,000 years. Now, that seems like quite a lot, right? Now, we'll talk about some more facts about this, and then we can talk about national...
I just noticed this now. People are going to get mad at me for quibbling over this a lot thing, but a lot is if a lot doesn't count as a normative statement in and of itself, you're smuggling in a lot of normativity, and I don't like that when you're supposed to be just describing facts, okay? Because a lot, and you can either agree with me on this or you're delusional, a lot is smuggling in the claim of too much. Very, very rarely when somebody says a lot, is that an appropriate amount? Usually it's with respect to an expectation, right? Here's your food. Wow, that's a lot. A lot? Like the implication is like way more than you expected, or sometimes too much, right? There's a lot of people on the way tonight, or there's, we got a lot of whatever. And it's funny because the way that I believe firmly that people intuitively understand that. I think people understand a lot to mean that. And it's funny because when you listen to the way that he's speaking, he's using a lot in that way as well, right? He's saying...
There's more people...
Because he said that now whether you believe that's a lot or a little or whatever is, right, believe whether it's a lot or a little. So we're not speaking with respect to concrete facts. We are speaking with respect to your opinion on it, on if you think this is too much or too little. It's funny that his normal use of language here is actually betraying a point that he's going to deny later on when I say, well, a lot. What does that mean when we say a lot?
In the last 35 years, more people came to Britain than came to Britain in the previous 2 millennia. So more people in 35 years than had come in 2,000 years. Now, that seems like quite a lot, right? Now, we'll talk about some more facts about this, and then we can talk about national identity. I'm going to take a little time, if you don't mind, just to lay this out.
Yeah, just kind of poke around as you answer.
Yeah, but hold on. Let me just let's talk about what we mean by immigration, right?
Okay. Well, then also the mass, because I hear a lot of these words will be like, it was a lot of people.
Well, hold on.
Like, what does that mean? Yeah.
I'm explaining it. So more people in 35 years than 2,000 years, that sounds like quite a lot of people.
Not necessarily, no.
Is that fair?
No, not really, right? In the context, really. Like if I were to ask for like the total growth of wealth compared...
I should use better... Nice, Tony Hawk. I should use better language here or whatever, but it's so hard. There's so many like burdens placed upon me to have these conversations when the other person is just a wormy, slimy, snaky fuck. Is when I say like, is that a lot? And I say, well, not really. More clearly, I should say not necessarily. It's not necessarily a lot. Like we have to qualify things when we say a lot, So for instance, if somebody says yesterday, we got 100 boxes of Oreos at the shop. Do you think that's a lot of boxes of Oreos? Like, I don't know, maybe not. If somebody says, well, we got 1 box of Kit Kats, we got 1 box of Oreos, we got 1 box of Hershey bars and 1 box of Gatorade and then 100 boxes of Oreos. Is 100 boxes of Oreos a lot? Well, that feels like a lot now, right? But if somebody says we got 10,000 boxes of Kit Kat bars, we got 10,000 boxes of whatever, right? I'm just saying that giving just like some amount or giving some percentage increase, you have to give this with respect to something else. One is to even understand the scale or to grasp the number itself. And then from there, then you can start building out like, this is a lot or whatever, right? So like one way to, like one example for how this argument could look is you could say something like, from 1950 to 2000, if you look at every other OECD country, their population increased with respect to the native population versus immigrants by 5%. In the UK, that number was 20%, right? Ooh, okay. That seems like uncharacteristically large. That seems like a lot given, every other OECD country, every other Western country. Seems like the UK had a disproportionately high amount of immigrants. You could speak with respect to a country's past, but I don't like those arguments because like everything is increasing at exponential rates. Like the amount of stuff available to people for everything is just not it's just a very weak way to make an argument of scale or whatever for whether or not you should be concerned about a particular thing.
To like the last like 50 years might also dwarf the last 2,000 years, or the total amount of carbon pollution, or the total amount of TV episodes or plays written or songs written. Like I don't know if I would just arbitrarily say I'm going to look at immigration and I'm going to measure it past some 1,000-year thing or whatever.
You don't think that more people...
I think that's okay. I think I explained that better than I thought I did. Okay.
People coming into a country in 35 years than had come in the previous 2,000 years is quite a lot.
Like this statement is meaningless, right? There were probably more light bulbs made in the past 35 years than in the past 2,000 years. There were probably more boat rides and more airplane trips and more microprocessors created and more, I guess, performances by musical groups and more. Like, there's more of every single thing, probably on an exponential level. More conversations happening, more political leaders elected, more people killed from cancer, more people born ever than in the past. Like, it's just such a meaningless. Like, you're trying to intuition pump a feeling that there's too much of a thing, but you're not giving it with respect to anything else. So you're just trying to like smuggle in all this like dumb normativity. I don't like. It's a very annoying fucking argument.
I just think that statement is like vacuous and meaningless. When we say quite a lot, what like should it have been less? Like what kind of immigrants shouldn't have come? No, what does that mean?
You're making it into a moral conversation. I'm talking about purely numbers. You might think it's a great thing, right? Like,
well, now he's retreating to. Well, first he's saying like great, which I guess you could argue great might be the same thing as saying like there was an appropriate amount or not enough, maybe. I don't like also. And I realize that right here, the dialogue treeing, but it's because these people are never in critical environments where they have to actually think through a conversation. This whole debate is this giant dialogue tree from this guy. He has like his talking points memorized, and then he'll just run them down, and he can't critically engage with a single fucking thing that he's saying. I don't know. We aren't talking about things that didn't exist 2,000 years ago. We're talking about migration. Did migration like really exist 2,000 years ago though? Like if you really think about it, like how many times was a person willingly moving from one country to another thousands of miles away? How many leaders could even make that journey in a lifetime, depending on what they had available to them, right? How many people were capable of even moving without there being some sort of like invasion from an enemy army, a change of the monarchy, I don't know how much... I don't know what the ordinary migration patterns were of like older people. My guess is it was probably an exceptionally rare event outside of like some sort of like fucking, you wouldn't call it a genocide, whatever the fuck was happening back then, some mass invasion, some mass slaughter of people, or some forced transfer from one area to another would be my guess for that.
I'm not talking, just to be clear, I'm not talking moral.
You keep interrupting.
You said a lot, yeah.
You keep interrupting. So
okay.
If we're talking about quite a lot, you keep trying to make it a moral thing.
I'm not making it a moral thing.
If we're going to have a conversation, you're going to have to let me finish a sentence at least.
Well, just don't misquote my position.
Okay, so just calm down for a bit.
I'm super calm.
I know you've got your Red Bull. Just have some
my
water,
Red Bull.
chill
I'm
out.
still super calm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very simple question, yeah.
If more people...
Like I can already see the pattern of this debate and the way that he speaks is going to be, I'm going to ask a question like, do you think killing people is wrong? And then the response is going to be, today, more than at any other point in all of human history, we have seen people that are acting in ways that are an affront to everybody in society. There are more people today that commit armed robbery than in the last 17,000 million years in the history of the existence of our... And it's like, it's so much fucking yap. And it's like, please, God, you could get to the point in literally 10 seconds. Why do you have to do a 1 or 2 minute statement every fucking... It's because this is not like a debate or a back and forth conversation or anything where we're critically engaging with each other. It's like, we need to just rattle off talking points and then not actually have a real back and forth at all. And I hate that. It's so fucking annoying.
If you're making a moral issue, it becomes very clouded and complicated. Let's just talk about what we're talking about in terms of pure numbers, right? If more people have come into a country in 35 years than have come in 2,000 years, that is objectively a lot. Now, you might think it's a good thing. Like, I like ice cream.
Like, again, a lot, like, it has to be, like, with respect. Like, but I don't know. This is like a basic, I don't even know if you'd call this stats or, I don't know. I don't even know what you would call this.
And if I eat a tub of ice cream, I'm not going to say that's not a lot of ice cream. I still like it, but it's a lot of ice cream, right? We'd accept that. It's more, a scoop is not a lot of ice cream, a tub is a lot of ice cream. So more people coming into a country in 35 years than had come in 2,000 years is objectively a lot of people, okay?
Just to be clear, when you say a lot, that's a normative value that's with respect to some kind of norm or when you say a lot.
Oh, yeah, compared to before.
Yeah, that's objectively, that is objectively true. It's just kind of a meaningless statement. Like everything is a lot more than the past
what I'm saying is objectively true. I'm grateful.
Correct, yes. So, a meaningless statement, but yes.
Now that we've got there, what does it mean? Well, first of all, think about it like this. And again, it's not about whether you like it or not, whether you think it's a good thing or not, or a bad thing. The three...
Yeah, like I don't even know, when we say objectively a lot, I don't even know what that means. Okay. Like objectively like a deviation above the norm, or objectively like, again, it seems like I'm being a little bit pedantic here, but there's so much smuggling of he should be able to work with me. Honestly, it's purely semantics. It's absolutely not semantics. I know that some of you think that way and I can't communicate with you, but it's not semantics. It's important. Especially when people are going to ramble on a 2-minute answer. When you start smuggling in so many of these tiny statements, you're almost begging the question by the end of the statement you've made. Like it almost has to be true. in whatever the thing you're talking about is.
3 bigger cities in this country in the last 30 years have ceased to be majority inhabited by the people who are native to this land. That's just a fact. And I'm one of the people who's come here in that time. So I'm not saying it's only a terrible thing, but it's an objective fact. The 3 biggest cities in the country are now majority minority. London, and this has happened very quickly. London was 80% white British in 1991. It is probably around 30% white British today. So if you have seen that level of change in the city in which you live, think about this as well. 3/4 of the people who live in this country today are over the age of 35. So all of this has happened within the lifetime of one generation, effectively. That is a level of change that is A, completely unprecedented, B, extremely transformative, whether you like it or not, good or bad, whatever you might think. You might think, oh, the amount of different kinds of food has got better. It's true, objectively.
I have a lot of general knowledge when it comes to like STEMmy stuff and some general knowledge outside of STEMmy stuff. But my general knowledge for world history is not that great. But I feel like if I was more confident here on world history, like my understanding is there have been several great upheavals socially, culturally of societies that have happened like relatively quickly. So like the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution. Maybe he wouldn't disagree with these. Let me say, oh yeah, those were huge changes as well. But like I don't think these were for the worse. Societies have survived them and for the better in the past. I just don't like all the smuggling in of like, well, there's a lot of people, right? And it's super unprecedented, right? And it's like, again, like we're going to quibble over this word unprecedented, but like when you say unprecedented, I think you're also baking in normatively a whole bunch of stuff there as well, because unprecedented almost always means like extremely in the direction of your opinion. Right? So if you say an unprecedented number of people came to help or whatever, that was like an extremely good thing. Or if you say an unprecedented wave of crime, that's going to be like an extremely bad thing. And there's just so many tricky normative loading things that are going on here that's so fucking annoying that people like to play this game, that if you truly believe in the ideas that you're saying and you truly think that you can defend them in some kind of back and forth, then you should be able to just drop off the normative bag and just say, like, okay, sure, yeah, okay, maybe not a lot, but like more. We can definitely agree that there was a huge percentage increase from time period A to time period B, and then we'll talk about whether or not that was good or bad, and like go to that. That's totally fine, I think.
But it's also true objectively that entire swathes of this city are no longer inhabited by the people who used to live here. Again, this is an objective fact. You can like it, you can dislike it, but that is something that has happened. This is true of London, it's true of Manchester, it's true of Birmingham, and it's true of several other smaller cities in this country. By 2060, according to current projections, white British people will become a minority in this country. 2060 is the next 35 years, right? And that's the entire kind of demographic transformation. These are facts. Forget about people's opinions, my opinion, your opinion. In terms of illegal immigration, there are now almost 1 million. We don't know exactly.
And it's like so much. Oh my God. It's so fucking annoying. I was already annoyed at this point because it's like you're obviously loading up that this is all like very negative, right? In what ways can a city changing so much, you motherfucker, yeah, get fucked, bitch. In what ways can a city changing so much that the ordinary people no longer even inhabit or the inhabitants of it, right? The implication there being, by the way, that they were like pushed off or overwhelmed is the feeling of that. It's just, this whole conversation is so fucking annoying. This guy is so fucking annoying. I guess I'm glad I got to show that he was annoying, but...
because it's hard to measure, but we have almost 1 million illegal immigrants in Britain today, which for a population of 70 million is quite a lot. And we currently spend £14 million a day. I'm not talking about the cost to the taxpayer.
There's also like a huge red flag here when somebody is willing to conflate groups of immigrants. I've said this a lot. When people start conflating groups of immigrants, it's almost always cluing you in that something else is happening as well. Because it's like if you want to talk about like effects of migration or whatever, or if you want to talk about like bad things related to legal immigration, that's fine. But when people start like throwing all these groups of like legal immigrants, illegal immigrants, and asylum seekers, it's like, well, all of these groups of people are different in so many different ways. They should be different, one, just in kind, right? Ideally, we want as many immigrants as we have because they've legally immigrated, so that means we've made the decision as a country to want them. We don't want, ideally, any illegal immigrants, right? If they're here illegally, then they haven't gone through the process, or for some reason they've decided to avoid it. And then, like, for asylum seekers, this is like a moral obligation that we've decided that countries ought to have because of World Convention, because of humanitarian reasons, because we consider it a good thing to help people that need help, and we can spare some resources to do it.
of having 1 million illegal immigrants here. I'm talking about how much we spent to accommodate them and all other things. Now, 14 million, is that a lot per day? It's quite a lot. But also, this is happening at an unprecedented rate. More people come to Britain illegally today than came legally when I came here in 1996. I'll say that again. More people come here illegally every year than came here in 1996 when I came here. That's the level of change when it comes to illegal immigration, and the cost of it, £14 million a day, is increased by a factor of 10 in the last 10 years alone. So it's 1,000% more than what it was. Those are the facts about immigration. So when we talk about immigration and whether it's compatible with national identity, it depends on what we mean. If we're talking about 20, 30, 40,000 people a year, highly selective from compatible cultures as it used to be, perfectly compatible, and in fact...
It's also... Okay, hold on. I need to, he said 40 million. I don't like to fact check things, even though I feel like some of the numbers he gave, I feel like a sanity check shows that these are probably not true, but I don't ever want to fact check something in a live conversation when I just don't know the numbers or the scale of numbers off the top of my head, because if I'm wrong, it obviously looks really bad. When he says 40 million, he said 40 million pounds a day are being spent on illegal immigrants that are in the country. Is that, where is that? Can somebody link me where that number comes from? Because that's is that 1.2 billion per year? 40 million times 365 is giving me a number in millions. That's 14.6 billion pounds. Did you say 40 or 14? Because I think this is a decent chunk of the British budget, right? A decent chunk. When we looked up, was about 1.4 trillion? What am I looking for? British annual or 2025 budget. Fuck, I can't find this. I don't know where this is. What the fuck? This should be an easy number to find. What was United Kingdom budget 2025? Focus on raising this in taxes. Okay. Oh, spending expected to reach 1.3 trillion. Okay. So this is not like a nothing number. Is that, does anybody know where that number comes from? This 40 trillion. Have you seen Warren Smith reacted to this debate? Yes. I'm 10 minutes into my 2-hour debate. Do you want me to click and watch his reaction to the debate that I haven't even fully watched yet? Is that, please, Jesus.
Those are the facts about immigration. So when we talk about, and the cost of it, £40 million a day, is
40 million pounds a day illegal immigrants. United Kingdom. My mental sanity check of this was this. It was too high. I wanted to call him out on it, but I just don't know. Maybe there's crazy amounts of welfare or something. You said 14 million? I think he said 40, because I think he'll say it again. I don't know. I don't know where he gets that number from, but...
increased by a factor of 10 in the last 10 years alone. So it's 1,000% more than what it was. Those are the facts about immigration. So when we talk about immigration and whether it's compatible with national identity, it depends on what we mean. If we're talking about 20, 30, 40,000 people a year, highly selective...
Wow, Illuminated, thanks for the 5 YouTube subs, buddy.
...from compatible cultures as it used to be, perfectly compatible, and in fact, I think probably quite desirable. If we're talking about what we've seen over the last 30 years, I don't think it's compatible with any sort of national identity at all. Now, I've been talking for a long time.
This is also another thing where I just don't have the world history, but like, I would almost bet a lot of money without even knowing the facts. I would be shocked if over the last 1,000 years, it was the case that every huge group that was moving in and out of like the United Kingdom or whatever was all like done willingly. Like, I'm pretty sure even in Britain, like motherfuckers were fighting the Scottish and the British and the English, and like that there were people invading and not invading, and people were forced to move from one area to the idea that like for the last 1,000 years, immigration to the island of Great Britain has been a carefully controlled thing and always selected for maximal matching with the customs and culture of the entire society. There's just no, I don't believe that. I just don't believe that that's true for any part of the planet. There's just no fucking way. The way that population transfers happen and the way that people moved from one area to the next, either by force through things like the Armenian genocide or by, cooperation, like the Turkish Greek whatever population transfers or whatever, or through force, like I think like the Indian Pakistan stuff, there's just no, I don't believe it. I should have more general examples in history, I think. Britain got fucking invaded and taken over by French people who completely changed their culture. Yeah, I think there's an example a friend gave me. There's a reason why there's so many weird English words or whatever, and a lot of it literally came from like French people like raping the English language and shit due to like invasions and forcing customs and norms and everything and different language conventions on people. Yeah.
Time so we can get to national identity after you've addressed that.
Sure. So I guess the thing that is a little bit strange to me about the immigration question is that sometimes I'll hear a bunch of descriptions laid out, and I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do with them. There's oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like. And then it feels like we're sometimes also lumping a ton of immigrants together. So, for instance, when we say there have been so many more immigrants that have come here in the past 30, 35 years, but then we also mention like illegal immigrants or asylum seekers, these are all different groups of people. So I don't know why. I
separated them out. I talked about legal immigration and illegal immigration, right?
I understand, but so the prompt has to do with basically can a country's culture, whatever, survive mass migration? Illegal immigrants are not mass migrating here. The mass migration.
They are. So I just told you more illegal immigrants come here every year now than legal immigrants came here 30 years ago.
I also like these numbers. It's irritating to me that it works so well, that this is so like rhetorically effective, I guess, because it shows that like people are just fucking retarded. Like these statements of like more of this has happened now than happened in 50 years ago. It's like what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? Like how am I supposed to intelligently engage with this number? It doesn't tell me anything. You're not communicating anything. It's just like a wow statement. It's so fucking annoying. This is like the plays to retards random statements.
Understand that, but if you look
they
at
are mass migrating.
So then, are the legal ones mass migrating, or what? Is it just
the legal immigrants are also mass migrating? It's possible for them,
but it's like 10 to 1, right? So so comparing the two.
Like if you want to talk about mass migration, then we can talk about, I guess, however you define mass migration. I'm not sure, and then the impacts on the culture, what you think the culture is that you want to defend. But then when we're like, well, 1 million illegal people came here, 10 million illegal people, it's like, what, I don't know why are we even breaking into groups at this point? Like we can just look at the total number of people coming, but all of it is because if you're trying to evaluate it from my frame or from my perspective, it seems random. But from his perspective, all of it is just normatively loaded in a bad direction. 80% British white to 20% British white getting raped. He didn't say getting raped. I'm mad at that. I shouldn't have that. I'm trying to make a point. But like, oh, the whites are a minority now. The inhabitants are no longer the majority inhabitants. Migration on scales we've never seen before. A lot. Unprecedented rates of migration all across Europe in ways that we've never selected for before. Like, and then illegal immigrants and asylum seekers. Like all of it is like normally loaded in a negative direction, which in any intelligent person's mind should communicate to you that this person doesn't feel confident defending their point if they've got to lump so much shit in together and then throw it out, and then is unwilling to, I think, sort through it after, I think I would say, being called out on it or being challenged to kind of like sort through these things piece by piece. But
it seems like we're talking about different kinds of, we're probably talking about different kinds of immigrants. We talk about legal versus illegal.
We're talking about both, yeah.
Well, no.
I'm talking about both.
You don't see any difference between a legal immigrant versus an illegal immigrant?
Well, of course I do.
Okay.
But they are both mass migrating here. They're both coming here in unprecedented numbers.
Everything definitionally is unprecedented as you move forward in years. We have an unprecedented amount of technology, an unprecedented amount of energy generation, an unprecedented amount of...
I think you might be confused about the meaning of the word unprecedented.
Unprecedented is, and it hasn't happened at that level before. Yeah.
Right, so if we have immigration of 20,000 people a year, that wouldn't be unprecedented because we had that before.
Yeah, but the population...
20,000 a year in whatever, fucking 19 whatever, probably would be unprecedented, though, compared to fucking the 1800s or the 1700s or the 1600s. Probably would be, but...
population is growing of the country, the population of the rest of the planet is growing, the economy is growing, there's a whole bunch of other factors at play. It's not like all else equal, there's just 10 million people that have shown up. Like there's other factors at play at all points in time as well.
He argues this way because to the average viewer and voter, they go outside in parts of London or Luton and don't see what they saw 40 years ago. It's effective. That's fine, and I don't even think that's a bad argument to make, but then like let's just make that argument. But I think that the reason why they don't want to make that argument is because if they make that argument absent all of these other like normatively loaded numbers, then they have to actually defend it with something rather than just appealing to like, well, look at all the numbers. Like, holy shit, Jam, that's crazy. All the numbers. And it's like, oh, well, shit, must be, whatever you're saying must be true because all the numbers. It's like, well, talk about that, you know? Because in some ways, like my argument is absolutely true that society will change all the time. Like how many cultures or societies, I guess I kind of hint at this later on with my questions, like how many times do you hear anytime ever, like an older person saying like, man, you know, I'm 60 now and these young kids, everything is more or less kind of like what I remember growing up. Like how many times, like I'm pretty sure you could find fucking Shakespearean references. Like in all of human history, older people always feel more alienated by younger generations, by their music, by their movies, sometimes by their fucking food, by their activities, everything. Like this always fucking happens. Now that's not to say, now I can make that statement and I would be absolutely correct, right? But you could push back on me there and you could, I don't want to do both halves of this argument also because I don't like steel manning or giving any of these fucking lose anything. But like you could push back on that, okay? And you can say, oh, okay, Destiny. So society has changed a lot throughout all of human history, correct? Society also changed when the Nazis came in power, right? So if I was challenging you on the abrupt change in German society because the Nazis came in and we started giving armbands to the Jews and everything, would you say that like, well, society's always changed and that's okay, right? Because now you're challenging just the concept that I'm giving, like, well, society's always changing or whatever, right? But then you have to actually get into like, okay, true, not all change is good, right? So some change is good and some change is bad. And then you could get more into the argument of like, well, for mass migration or for migration, like is the culture change brought on by massive numbers of immigrants? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? But then again, then you have to be willing to argue, well, what parts of the culture are you trying to save? What parts of the culture are you willing to see change? And you have to have concrete answers there. Otherwise, it's just meaningless appeal to numbers to make the argument for you. And they can't. That's not what numbers do.
So yes, it's a bit reductive to say, like, well, we have an unprecedented wave of whatever. There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward into the future we go.
No, that's
yes.
not true.
What's the thing that's been frozen in time?
I just explained it to you.
Yes,
like this would be a thing where in a future debate, I say this, I'm always saying this, it's never going to happen because the reality is no conservative would ever fucking agree to it. But this would be a thing where I would appeal to a moderator for clarification. Or like, I don't like him using the word a lot. I think that if he's going to use a subjective value like a lot, he needs to justify it, or we can just move into the subjective part of the argument rather than him just dropping a bunch of claims and then essentially begging the question. Fuck you.
I did a bunch of numbers and I just explained why they're contextless and meaningless. But now I'm asking, what is the thing that's unprecedented?
Look,
or I'm sorry, what would be a thing that is not changing in the past 30 years? Like if you had to look at something.
One of the most amazing things of arguing with anybody from your position is the extent to which they refuse to understand what words mean.
I don't know if people in the audience are aware of this. I don't want to call this out because I've already been aggressive at this point, but I thought about just saying it. I don't know if people are aware of how much these types of statements are like self-soothing statements for somebody that is like feeling incredibly pressed or somebody who's feeling like there's a lot of pressure on them. I think you can tell, like you can go to the argument that I had with Hutch yesterday. It was a pretty intense argument. If somebody is getting annoyed by being interrupted, right? Like I think there were times where me and Hutch were interrupting each other. Notice that when Hutch says that I'm interrupting him, Hutch doesn't say, stop interrupting me. Okay, Destiny, notice how you spent so much of this conversation engaged in interruptions and you haven't let me get out any of my points because the only thing right, he's not doing that because he wants to say his point. Hutch is irritated if I'm interrupting because he wants to get a point. He's like, stop interrupting me, okay? What I'm trying to say is blah, 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 blah. And then he goes on and he gives his point, right? This is because he doesn't want to be interrupted because he has something to say. Actually, almost all of the times that Konstantin in this debate is going to say stop interrupting, he will take advantage of the momentary pause afterwards to go on some fucking diatribe about, oh, these guys don't understand what's. He's doing that as a self-soothe because he doesn't have an answer to things I'm saying. It's very transparent to me. It's very fucking irritating to deal with. I don't know if it's always communicated to the audience. Ugh.
I just explained to you repeatedly what unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before. There have been times in the history of this country when its immigration was in the tens of thousands, and for us to go back to that would not be going forward to something unprecedented. It would be returning to something that we used to do.
Sure.
Right?
My question
so what has happened in the last 30 years is unprecedented.
Is there anything in U.S. culture, in British culture, that has remained the same for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years, that doesn't have an unprecedented thing happening constantly?
Absolutely. I mean,
so this would have been a really good opportunity to bring up some kind of like strong British, maybe even Western like virtues or concepts or whatever the fuck else that he feels like current mass migration is threatening.
That is what a culture is. It was what is preserved over time.
How? But he just gives the definition of the thing. Like what do you think is, like, tell me what, I don't even know. I can't even make an analogy how stupid that statement was.
Oh.
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by law.
But what is an example of a culture that is unchanging?
How much have you traveled around the world?
Probably more than you?
Probably not, actually.
Okay. So then you should be able to very easily answer. Here's an example of a culture that exists.
Every time I try and answer your question, you keep talking over me.
Well, that's because when you answer, you ramble and say irrelevant things. So my question is...
How can I ramble in half a sentence?
You've been saying plenty of sentences. Do you think the speaking time up to this point is even, or do you think you've spoken more than me?
I have spoken more than you, but I haven't interrupted you.
So you had an opportunity to speak. You're just not answering my question. So my question is very simple. What's a culture that you feel has been unchanged for the past 50 years? Or what is an example of cultural preservation? I feel like cultures are evolving all the time. It's definitionally a part of culture.
Of course. Cultures are evolving all the time. But if you were to be plonked in 1970s Afghanistan and 1990s Afghanistan and 2010s Afghanistan and 1950s Britain, 1970s Britain and 2010s Britain, there would be common themes that run through both of those places.
What are the themes?
So that you would instantly recognize, I am in Afghanistan, I am in Britain. Would you accept that?
I agree that different cultures are different, yes.
Right, well done. Good. So we've got there then.
Well, you just established that there are... This is like saying
different cultures are different, which means that they have something about them.
Yes.
What is the thing that makes them different?
If you have a brother, both of you...
I shouldn't use an analogy. I should ask him, what is the thing? Like, why would... A better question would be, why would you notice differences in Afghanistan culture between British culture? Like, what are the differences? One thing that's annoying is it's also hard too, because the average conservative MAGA is probably like 85 IQ, right? But like, people will hear me speak in this and they're like, oh, he's dodging the question, or oh, he's implying that like you wouldn't be able to tell a difference between British culture and Afghanistani culture or whatever the fuck. I think you absolutely could. I'm sure you could. I'm not saying that there's no difference. I'm just saying I need to hear you like speak to some of these so that we can have a conversation about them. Like, you're the culture warrior that's so invested in defending this culture. Like, give me some examples, and then we can talk about those, right? There's probably a decent amount of agreement we're going to have here. Again, I'm probably the friendliest fucking left-leaning person you're ever going to find who is willing to agree with you on a lot of the things about the differences between certain societies. So this unwillingness to engage critically with this question at all is very, very fucking annoying.
Be different for your entire lives,
but there would be a family culture that you have that's different to other families.
But you wouldn't be the same as you were when you were 10 years old.
No,
you
you
grow and change, right?
Of course.
So when you talk about
but you're still the same
culture,
person, right?
What?
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but you're dramatically changed.
But you're still the same.
No. Are you the same as you were 10 or 15?
This is a really dumb semantic game right now, but it's like, are you the same person? I mean, like obviously there's ways that you can take that where the answer is yes, obviously, but there's also ways you can take where the answer is no, obviously. But again, like, it's annoying because I have to do 100% of the work in this conversation because he is just fucking fighting for his life on every fucking point, right? Like, if you were to say, like, when you're 5, are you the same human being that you are when you're 15? Well, obviously, of course. From the moment of conception, ideally, you're the same fucking person. But then if somebody would ask you, like, you're at therapy or whatever, and you're like, do you think you're the same person now that you were 30 years ago or 20 years ago? I was like, of course not. Obviously not. The fuck? I'm completely different now, you know? Like, there's a reason why... Oh, this would have been a good point to bring up. I would never refer, if I was talking about British culture in any kind of historical sense, I would never refer to British culture or American culture. I would refer to American culture in some year. I would give it with respect to a year, because American culture in the 1900s, early 1900s, is going to be a lot different than American culture in the 21st century. You're going to give it with respect to time because you would recognize they're, I guess you could say, you wouldn't, maybe you wouldn't say they're completely different things. You would say they're changing. But I mean, this is like quibbling over like meaningless distinctions in words when conceptually we understand what's being said here. Yeah.
10 years ago? What do you mean by that? Same. You're not unchanged, right?
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
So your claim was that...
Like, it should be, like, again, it's annoying because I have to do all the work in this conversation since he's so fucking afraid to engage with anything. It's pretty obvious what I'm stating at this point, and you should be able to engage with what I'm saying without, like, being thrown for a loop on everything. Like, it's pretty obvious that when we say, are you the same person or not? Like, well, what do we mean when we...
We need to preserve culture because cultures aren't supposed to change.
No, that's not my claim.
Okay, then help me understand. So
well, I will.
Because
and it's also annoying to me because he's going to accuse me later on of trying to pigeonhole him as a conservative. Like, I give him a chance. Like, articulate your position. Tell me. Okay, like right here, I stop. It's like, I'm not telling you this is what you believe or this is what you're saying. Or I'm trying to say here, this is what you said, because I'm trying to understand what he's saying. But then when he says, that's not what I said, okay, well, tell me. Just give me a thing. Like, tell me.
Remember, this whole topic started with, I'm curious, what is the thing that is precedented? What's the thing that happens continuously through all of history that isn't changing? And then you pointed to the fact that Afghanistan and the United Kingdom are different cultures. Like, that's something that I would reject.
No, I didn't. I was just explaining to you what cultures are, which are the cultural differences between groups of people that remain.
Like, even this is a stupid answer. I feel like he's actually never answered this question before. Like, they doesn't have a set of arguments ready to go. Like, this is a very level 1 question. Like, when you're trying to preserve a culture, what is that culture you're trying to preserve? To not know how to answer to this question? This is a very sussy baka lack of understanding here for something that you talk so much about. Yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit shocking to me.
No, I didn't. I was just explaining to you what cultures are, which are the cultural differences between groups of people that remain fairly constant over time, despite changing somewhat, as all cultures do.
Your definition of culture is the...
Like, what a non-answer. What?
Difference between your culture and another culture?
No, I gave you my definition.
You just said. You said it was the differences between cultures that change over time that define one culture against another one.
Okay, let's reset, and you talk for a bit.
Like, this is like a self-soothe, right? Like, can you just talk about, I don't want to engage with it anymore. I can't, you can't answer the question. Again, like, I would be fighting to get my points out here if this was a thing that I felt strongly about, right? Are jazz and rock, is jazz and rock the same thing? No, jazz and rock are different. What are the differences? Well, over time, jazz has done things, and over time, rock has done things, and those are the things that are, and the things that have remained constant and changed between each other. It's like, no, well, there are different things, right? I would say that jazz is cool. No, I'm just kidding. Right? You know, there are different instruments that you use. There are different group compositions that you use. You know, rock bands tend to have a guitar player, a drummer, a bass player, a singer. Jazz, there are different subgenres of jazz that oftentimes don't have singers. It's more rare with rock. Like, there's a ton of things you can point to that are differences between the two things. And especially if I was fighting as like a member of like the Jazz Preservation Society, if somebody would ask me, what do you want to preserve about jazz? And I'm like, well, it's different than rock. Like, that's your definition of your entire genre of music? What do you mean different than rock?
And then I talk for a bit, and then you talk for a bit.
Well, no, because I noticed that this is how it feels like a lot of these types of people, the centrists, the reformers.
Like, if you were a person who didn't come into this with opinions about this debate already, like, what would a person walk away from thinking Konstantin believes British culture is? Like, what is the British culture he's trying to preserve or say? I have no idea. The difference between that and Afghanistan culture, I guess? I don't know.
The MAGA, whatever, is you paint with such broad brushstrokes that by the end of a sentence, I feel like you haven't really said much at all. And I'm just kind of curious why, when you guys speak about things like the preservation of culture, I don't really hear you allude to anything concrete. Or when you talk about wanting to preserve something, you talk about how something has changed. I don't necessarily hear, like, what are the things that are changing that you don't like. You'll point to things like crimes, but I mean, like, crimes are illegal. Obviously, they shouldn't be happening. I just don't really hear anything concrete ever, and it's very unsatisfying to listen to a bunch of people kind of ramble on and on and on without ever having a clear point about what they're talking about. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, for British or American culture, what are these things that you feel are common, maybe you go back 30, 40, 50 years, that were common across the whole country that you feel are changing in a way that they never changed in the past?
Okay. A little wordy, but fuck this guy. But I think I'm getting my point across here. Like, what are the common British themes that have existed that weren't changing initially, but are now changing, I guess you could say because of mass migration or whatever, or just haven't changed traditionally that you see changing now? Yeah. I think that's a decent question.
Okay. Done?
and again, like, this is another thing, right? Like, this is self-soothe. Done? Like, are you not eager to answer the question? Can you really not engage with this at all? Are you that incapable of having any kind of conversation that it's not just like rattling off your boring fucking talking points? I don't know.
You're going to answer that question? He's not going to answer the question. Go ahead.
I've attempted to answer your question many times, and I'll do so again. However, first of all, am I going to be okay to speak now for a bit?
More self-soothing.
Sure.
There's a timer. He's running it down. That's what the point of these types of stupid fucking rhetorical questions are. But all right, run it down, Chief.
Repeat my question first so I know what you're...
Your question is about what is culture. You brought up crime.
That wasn't my question. My question is over the past...
It's not even what my question was. Not what is culture. We already passed it. You didn't answer that. I just want to know what the cultural things are now because you weren't capable of answering the cultural question before. Oh my God.
Past 30 or 40 years, what are things that have changed in American or British culture that you feel over the past 200 years before that were unchanging?
Okay. One of the things that has changed in Britain over the last 30 years is we now have extensive number of Islamist terrorist attacks, mass stabbings, mass rape of British girls by Islamist and Muslim grooming gangs. This is not something that happened in this culture before.
We can quibble over is crime part of culture. There's a concession, I guess you can say it is, but in my mind, you have like fundamental building blocks of society, and then on top of those fundamental building blocks, you get ideally like culture is more than just your survival, right? Culture are like I don't know if you would say the artistic things necessarily, but they're like the peak expressions of human creativity, I don't know, of our humanness, right? So when I think of like basic needs of like, does everybody have homes? Does everybody have clothing? Does everybody have, like food and water? Is there relatively little crime? Like, I guess you could argue that these are like cultural aspects, but I mean, I feel like these are more prerequisites to culture. I guess more so than that, like on a subjective level, I want something more here. for a variety of reasons. One is because I can't imagine that like the historic defense of British culture is like, well, there wasn't much crime. That's one. I don't even know how true that is. But then two, it's also like what a sad state of affairs that like the big cultural thing is like not many rapes, right? I don't know. That just feels very unsatisfying to me for one reason. Number two is because I don't think that if you were to get rid of all the rapes, I don't know if that would even influence how he would feel about any group of immigrants coming in at all. Like if I were to tell you you could bring 1 million Pakistani people here and their crime rates were half that of the native population guaranteed, would you be okay with 1 million of them coming over? I don't think that would move the needle on that much at all. But I mean, I can't ask that now, so.
Okay, so sexual assault and rape did happen before.
Did you hear the words I said, or did you?
So you said grooming gangs. I know there's the example from the 80s and 90s of the Rotherham.
They're not from the 80s and 90s. They're happening right now.
What is another grooming gang example? Because I know there are rapes and stuff that happen, but I don't think there are.
Yeah, well,
Apparently there are a couple other grooming gang scandals that I didn't see in Lonerbox's notes. I saw somebody tweeting about it, and I looked up a couple of these. There are a couple of these. They're not at anywhere. I don't even want to say anywhere near like it justifies the magnitude of. They're not even in the same fucking universe as the numbers that he gives. But there were a few other ones at least. I think I saw at least 2 or 3 other ones, which are very bad, 100%. I don't think anybody should be getting raped.
Explain it to you. So grooming gangs, this is a euphemism that we use to pretend that...
And then now we're launched into some other fucking explanation. Now we're pigeonholed on fucking crime.
They're not what they are mass rape gangs where young British girls, usually underage...
Fuck, there was also such a great counterexample here that I should have brought up, but I didn't. I also don't know how they feel about Catholics, I guess, in general in Europe. But like in terms of like, if I had to guess without thinking immediately, I'm wondering if like the largest kind of like quote unquote grooming gang mass rape thing that's probably ever happened that I can think of in history is probably the Catholic Church. And this is as a Catholic, okay? I love my fellow Catholics. But I'm trying to think if there's anything that would be on the scale of like, Catholics literally have their own fucking country. And then like, that was arguably like a form of like a top-down conspiratorial thing. You had like archdioceses and like large religious figures that were moving priests that had been engaged in the molestation of boys. In terms of like grooming, like a lot of this stuff is happening in churches or schools where the kids are there from a young age. Like this is like definitionally for real grooming. There was also a thing brought up. I didn't know this until after the debate, unfortunately. And also, I'm not as comfortable on British cultural grounds. But another thing that was brought up that I thought was very interesting is that for some of the grooming gang stuff, and then for just some of the rapes in general, apparently in the United Kingdom, and I fact-checked this after I was told this by somebody to make sure that I'm not completely hallucinating this, or they weren't just making up a thing. One of the issues, now I'm not saying that there weren't other issues related to government officials being a little bit reluctant to report stuff because of like, crime, because they didn't want to be seen as racist or anything else. Did I hit that other shot? God damn. You call me a bitch. Oh, he sounds British.
Did I get that other dude? Did I get him at least? Tell me I got him.
You got him, brother. You got him.
Hell yeah.
One of the reasons why it was apparently difficult to get some of these like rape allegation things reported, it was because of, I guess there was a thing for a while in British culture to where if you have a girl who's 14 and she like does drugs, a bit like what do they call them, slags or something, you know, just seems like kind of like a slutty 14-year-old, that the British police just wouldn't take things from them that seriously because they're like, you know, she's saying it's prostitution and rape or whatever else, but like they're probably just kind of fucking whores that are out here, you know, fucking people and doing shit, which I thought was kind of insane. But apparently this was like a recognized problem when it came to reporting like rapes or prostitution for some of these young girls. And you could argue, right? One could argue that that is an artifact of Judeo-Christian thought, that like if you're involved in sexual shit and you're up to no good as a kid, like it's your fucking fault, especially for women that are trying to report stuff like that. But regardless, not to defend the grooming rape stuff, I think that's not a good thing. We should never be grooming or raping people. Ever. Not good. I need to go down.
But also often sometimes young women would be plied with drugs, plied with alcohol, would be taken from the care homes where they were, predominantly by Pakistani, sometimes other Indian subcontinent Muslims. they would be targeted primarily because they were white and British. So these were racially aggravated hate crimes. And they would be mass raped over periods of years sometimes. That did not used to happen in Britain. So that is a cultural change. Can I finish what I'm saying, please?
Okay, you're not going to answer my question. Okay.
I am answering your question.
Well, my question was, what are examples? I don't think this has happened outside of the Rotherham grooming gang. That whole.
I shouldn't have even taken the bait on this. I should have just clarified. Like, I say clarified, but it's not even like a clarification. Like, so the British culture that you're saying is unchanging. Is like that people weren't getting raped as much, or through like rape. Fuck this unupgraded gun. I suck. Like, that's our example? That's what we're going with for British culture? I'm not going to win this fight. I can already tell.
There have been rapes, there have been gang rapes, but the idea of like a coordinated grooming gang type mass Pakistani targeting British girls rapes, that type of thing is not a thing that I'm aware has been seen in Britain outside of the large Rotherham scandal.
Well, I don't know. I think the fact that somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million British girls might have been raped by these gangs is quite a big deal, and it represents a change in the culture of this country that I think is quite unlikely.
I never said it wasn't a big deal. I think rape is bad. I just think it's bad when white people do it too. I think it's bad when everybody...
I don't know where he gets that number. That was another thing that, like, sanity check didn't seem possible. 500,000 to 1 million British... How many young British girls are there in the country over that time span? Like, that sounds like you would have to be raping basically like British Pakistanis were raping like every single fucking young British girl in the country. Like, all of them were getting raped, or like half of the fucking girls were getting raped. I don't know what the actual number is. That sounds like a huge fucking number. I don't even know if there's enough girls to go around for that much rape, but I don't know.
Does it? My understanding is right now for the crime stats in the United Kingdom, it tends to be more white people are even overrepresented in terms of sexual assault and rape. But I'm aware that there are immigrants that rape people as well. I think all rape is bad, but the idea that there is a mass Islamist, jihadist, rape gang-centered thing in the United Kingdom that's functioning,
so
I think
how many girls would have to be raped for you to admit that it's a mass thing?
I don't even know what the fuck that... What is the definite... Ooh, good shot! I don't even know what we're defining right now. What's your base rape line or whatever?
The question isn't if it's a mass thing. The question is if it's organized. You have a huge problem with definitions. I'm sorry, let me try to keep this tight. You're not understanding. You're not following the conversation.
Stephen,
rape is bad, but organized grooming gang rape.
You've asked me a lot of questions, and every time I answer them, you ignore my answer. Now answer my question.
Yeah.
Answer my question. If 500,000 girls have been mass raped in this way, specifically being targeted...
I don't even know what do we even, like, in terms of normative loading... 500,000 girls have been mass raped. So 500,000 girls have been raped. Like, why are we just adding mass to everything now that is like an immigrant-related thing? Oh, Jesus.
Because they were not of a particular religion or ethnicity. How many of them would have to be treated in this way for you to admit that it's a mass thing? What's the number that makes... Answer my question.
I don't know how you would identify
Give us a
mass
number.
thing.
Give us a number.
The question was organized grooming.
You said
500,001. So you're right. You're right beneath the threshold. Maybe tomorrow you'll have it.
It's actually...
So the question is there organized...
It's actually between 500,000 and 1 million.
Okay, I'll ramble for a second and then you can ramble after.
So you agree that it's mass.
My issue is because you do this thing over and over again where you won't accurately identify a problem. You'll invent these things because rape isn't bad enough. Now it has to be like a mass grooming gang rape thing. And then what happens is you conservatives, you play this game where you falsely identify a problem, you lie to the audience about it, and then you manage to gain power. You go through with some wacky scheme. Go figure, the wacky scheme doesn't fix anything, and then somehow you come back with the same recycled narratives over and over again asking for another shot at it. It's happening right now with Farage and reform. It happened with Brexit. Brexit didn't reduce immigration. It didn't help you with your economy. It didn't do anything really good for the United Kingdom at all. And then it's happening now with reform coming in and making all of these promises to the British people that you're going to be able to cut all of the revenues coming in, you're going to be able to increase all of your funding, you're going to have a no-wait NHS, and it's all built on the same lies over and over again that didn't help you affect any positive outcomes in the past, and it's not going to help you affect any positive outcomes in the future. You can sit here and you can be upset about it, but I watched you and Matt Goodwin debate on stage where you guys both made the bold prediction that once the Tories were out, your immigration numbers would be over 1 million per year. They plummeted to 300,000. I haven't heard you say anything about that. Your predictions were completely wrong, just as they were with Brexit as well.
I don't know why they clap for me, but thank you.
Well, that was a wonderful presentation. The problem for you is I voted Remain in the referendum.
Because you hadn't been bullied by the Cambridge students yet. I'm aware of the history, but...
True!
So, you've come here with a bunch of talking points. That's great.
Hold on. We can break down anything you want.
Stop interrupting.
Don't accuse me of having talking points.
Stop interrupting. Stop interrupting.
Then address what I said.
Stop interrupting.
Address what I said.
Stop interrupting.
Address what I said.
Stop interrupting.
I believe in you.
Stop interrupting. I let you talk, and I let you make your points. Have some respect for me and for my opportunity to express myself as well.
Like this statement, I let you talk and I let you make your points. Now let me talk and let me make my points. Like, No, motherfucker. This is a Zoom call. We're supposed to be having a back and forth, not a 2-minute yap fest from both sides. But again, like, this is what these guys do. And then they pretend that they've had like a meaningful discussion. Like, as long as I'm allowed to ramble for a minute and a half, you don't really challenge me significantly in anything or force me to explore anything that I've actually stated, rather than just accepting it as true, or at least accepting it as my opinion. And then you get to do your yap, and then we go back and forth yapping like that for 2 hours. And it's like, bro, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, we really can't critically go back and forth on anything at all? Like,
that is how a debate is conducted. So stop interrupting. We started this with a conversation about mass immigration, and I gave you the facts on it, and I defined what immigration is, right? Mass immigration. Now, you're talking about culture. I also explained to you what culture is, and I explained it to you by explaining that it's a continuity of certain things, which may also evolve over time. Now, in terms of your point about mass immigration since Brexit, I was not a supporter of Brexit. I didn't think it was necessarily a good idea, and I agree with you that it hasn't reduced immigration, but I don't see how that's relevant to this conversation. We have had mass immigration happen in this country continually over a long period of time, which has changed the country in the way that I gave you. And I gave you a number of examples, like Islamist terrorism, like grooming gangs, and other things, which I don't think you're able to address because they counteract the argument that you keep making, which is, well, nothing changes when you bring in 8 million people over 30 years.
Did I say that? When have I ever made that fucking argument? What?
Can I finish, please?
Did I say that?
Can I finish? Can I finish, please?
You can't address anything.
Can I finish, please? If I interrupted you every time you misrepresent my argument, you'd never talk at all.
Go for it. Okay.
So can I finish, please? You made the point that basically what I'm trying to say is, not trying to say, what I'm saying is, when you bring in large numbers of people into a country from a different culture, that will necessarily change the culture. The other thing that I explained to you is, there's been such a large wave of immigration into this country now that has fundamentally changed the sense of British people about the place in which they live. It is affecting the demographic dynamics of major cities in this country and the way people feel about that. But all of those things, the facts that I gave you about immigration, they are what they are. You can think that they're good, you can think that they're bad. That is a separate conversation. The facts are
the conversation that we're supposed to be
There's
having.
Also a thing about how British people
Oh my
feel
God.
about it. When I came to this country in 1996, 3% of the British public thought that immigration was a major concern. Today, about 65 to 70% of British people say that there are too many immigrants in this country and too many immigrants coming here. Now, I think British people...
Like, first of all, this camera's out of focus. What the fuck? I don't understand this thing. I understand it. Will you just like ramble off like these numbers that are not relevant? It's just like memorize talking points. 8% of the British, 96%, blah, blah, 2% of this, 5% of this, 400,000 this compared to 30 years ago. Okay, can we like actually have a can you critically engage? When I say critical engagement, when I say that, what I mean is that when I speak a sentence, you're looking at the meaning of the things that I'm saying, and then you are responding to the things that I'm saying that is either agreeing with or countering the points that I'm making. When I say critically engage, that's what I mean. So if I say something like, I think that your hair is ugly because your hair is the color pink. If you respond with, goth bands are popular and they have pink-haired people or whatever, you're not really critically engaging with what I'm saying. You're just rattling off talking about it. If I say, I think your hair is pink, therefore it's ugly, and you're like, well, actually, I think it's very pretty. And I think that a lot of people think it's pretty. There are a lot of goth bands, for instance, that have pink hair, and a lot of people like the way that goth singers or whatever look. Therefore, that's like you have a fact that you've got there by the goth bands, but you're actually critically engaging with what I'm saying. You've taken a thing that you've memorized and you're making it apply. I don't know do I have to explain what the fuck critical engagement means? Like, that's not just like rattling off a fucking talking point? Holy shit.
People probably have a better idea of how they feel about immigration than you, Stephen, and that is how they feel.
Why do you think over half the British population believes that the majority of the immigrants here today are here illegally, if they've got such a great handle on it or a great idea about what immigration is doing to the country?
The reason that people overestimate immigration is people generally, when asked about things, overestimate pretty much everything or under...
Then how, like this is what I mean. I say critical engagement. How are you not undermining exactly what you just said? I think the British people here have a really good understanding of the immigration, more than you. Oh, really? Well, then why are they off on this from an order of magnitude? Well, that's because people actually don't know fuck all, and they actually overestimate fucking everything when asked in polls. Like, okay, wait, so then they don't have a good handle on it? Like, what the fuck?
Estimate things terribly because people are not very good with numbers. But the other reason, of course, people aren't able to quote you the exact number of people who
I didn't ask for a quote of the exact number.
You said this earlier, and I'm addressing your broader point, which is why do people misunderstand the immigration statistics? Is that people don't look at immigration as this is the number of people who came this year and this is the number of people who came last year. They look at the reality of their lives, they look at the change they see around them, and what they're really concerned about is the cumulative impact of immigration over the period of their lifetime, which, as I explained to you, has been huge, unprecedented over the last 35 years and will be even more unprecedented in terms of its cumulative impact over the next 35 years. Okay. Now, it's true that immigration has come down to 300 or something thousand in the last year. Doesn't mean it will stay that way, but also I never predicted it would get to 1 million. I think Matt did. But the point I would make is the transformation over a 30-year period is what people actually care about, and which is what they're right to care about. Now, as for the point about illegal immigration, yeah, it's true. Illegal immigration is a smaller percentage of the total immigration that we have than legal immigration, but it's still higher today than it was 35 years ago and 30 years ago, which is way too high. Illegal immigration should be zero. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Do we have any final thoughts before we move on to the...
And we've discussed nothing. This is like he's playing, like he's fighting for his life, trying to survive the section where he doesn't have to critically engage with or respond with anything. It's so fucking annoying. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, every crime should be zero, but there's always going to be some amount of crime or some amount of illegal immigrants. I guess the issue I have is that, you say, why do the British people not understand the exact numbers? I didn't ask for the exact numbers. It's like 10 or 11 million to 1 million. There are different estimates from 500,000 to 1.3 million or whatever illegals. That's a big ratio, 10 to 1 to be off by, to assume it's 50-50, or that there are more illegals than there are legal immigrants here. And I think the issue is people in your position, or people like Reform or Restore, depending on how far right you want to go, lie constantly about the immigrant population in the United Kingdom. And then as a result of selling those lies to the people, you get these ridiculous plans or attempts to fix it all in the United Kingdom. And because the problem was never as severe as it was stated in the first place, the problem ends up not being solved, and then you exacerbate other problems. So at the end of the Tory government, with this attempt with like the Rwanda plan, this idea that you're going to ship people to other countries to have them processed first, or with the idea that leaving Brexit would give the UK greater control over their illegal immigrant population. And the reality is it did just the opposite. You didn't have the right to access the same people that were trying to claim asylum in the EU, and then if they were rejected once there, to send them back if they came to Britain next. You lost access to a lot of these things. And then the same people...
I'm rambling here because I just want to get all my points out because I'm irritated that we didn't actually get to have a fucking back and forth on fucking anything. So now I am just fucking yapping my whole argument out that I was hoping we could walk through, but okay.
That were in charge of pushing those ideas are now telling you and selling you on the idea that reform is going to come in and somehow fix the very same issues that they've been lying about and have failed to fix in the past. And you might hear this talking point, this cope that, well, reform is different. We're not going to be like the old conservatives, but then you've got all your politicians are going to be MP Tories that are defecting to join the new Reform Party. So I don't know where all this new blood is going to come from. I don't know. It just seems like a whole bunch of here's a fake problem. I'm going to put it in front of you. There is a real problem here. Regardless of what you said earlier, I don't think rapes are good, mass rapes or normal rapes. I think there should be some probably cap on what type of immigrants and how many should come to the country. I just never really hear a discussion on any of that. I just hear 500,000 British girls have been gang raped by mass grooming gangs, and it wasn't like that when I came over in '96, despite the fact that those Rotherham grooming gang scandals started in the '80s. So I don't feel like I ever hear anything of substance being spoken about.
Well, it's a pity we didn't have someone from Reform on stage so you could rehash your wiki.
I don't know what it is about fucking conservative fucking losers that do this. These guys never want to defend the politicians, the policies, the people that they shamelessly fucking shill constantly. I hate it. I hate how cowardly they are, but I'm okay with that as long as they're forced to have more engagements with people like me. You should be you need to see this guy on his podcast saying things like, guys, I'm pretty sure, I don't have this. I'm pretty sure Konstantin said this is we have one more shot at this. We've got to vote reform or else the country is fucking lost or whatever. When they'll engage in that kind of rhetoric on their show or when they're in safe spaces, friendly spaces for people that won't push them too much. And then when they're in front of me, well, I'm not here to defend reform, or I'm not a reformer. I didn't vote for Brexit. I wouldn't defend it. It's motherfucker, oh my God, are you serious? What a pussy. What a weak-willed, limp dick, spineless fuck, wormy, squirmy loser. Holy shit.
Wikipedia talking points to them.
Also, the Wikipedia talking points, motherfucker, that's you. What do you think about immigration? I think that the more immigrants have come in the past 30 years than have come since the year 1066, and I actually think that 45% increase, and there were 80% were white, and then it went to 20% minority. Hello, what the fuck? You're the one that sounds like a Wikipedia article, bro. Engage with what we're fucking saying. Holy shit. At least upgrade from Wikipedia to ChatGPT. Jesus Christ.
We didn't have someone from Reform on stage so you could rehash your Wikipedia talking points to them.
You're a Reform voter, though, right?
No, I've never voted for Reform.
Would you vote for Reform in the upcoming election?
Depends on who stands.
Look at how sneaky he was being. Oh, no, I've never voted for Reform. First of all, wait a second. Was Reform a party at the last general parliamentary or whatever fucking election? Or do they call them generals? I don't know when the Reform Party started or whatever, but... And he's like, yes, it was, okay. And he's like, well, would I vote for him? Well...
In my constituency. Last election, I voted for a Liberal Democrat.
I didn't ask about last election.
I also hate this because I don't know his constituency and I don't know the Liberal Democrat that he's talking about. I do know that that's not Labor, but I don't know one thing that I can't catch because I don't know all the politicians offhand, like in the United States, if somebody was coming over here to argue with somebody, like, oh, it seems like you support all conservatives, well, a few years ago before the current admin, they'd be like, oh, no, there's actually a lot of liberals that I like. For instance, I really like Tulsi Gabbard. I really like Kirsten Sinema. I really like RFK Jr. Like, these people have been Democrats their whole fucking lives. And I was like, really, bro? But if you're like a foreigner, or if you're not aware of like U.S. politics, like, oh shit, okay, well, fine. I guess he does support both sides. You know, it was like, excuse me, no.
The upcoming election.
I don't know what the liberal Democrat is, the Lib Dem in his constituency was, or what that. Yeah, I have no idea.
Fans of my constituency. Last election, I voted for a Liberal Democrat.
I didn't ask about last election. In the upcoming election, will you vote for reform?
I will probably vote for the same person who's a Liberal Democrat.
Okay, so you don't think you would support the liberal reform guy? I don't know. In
Liberal
your
reform. There's no party called Liberal
I'm sorry,
reform.
you won't support the reform candidate in whatever upcoming election. I don't know what constituency you live in.
I just told you that at the last election I voted for a Liberal Democrat.
Yeah, I know, but the reason why you're saying that is because
he's definitely not a Lib Dem supporter. They're like center left. Okay, sure.
Stop interrupting. Stop interrupting. Stop interrupting. Stop interrupting.
Yeah, go for it.
I just told you that at the last election I voted for a Liberal Democrat, and at the next election I intend to vote for him as well.
I'm just curious. You said in the past that you regret, or not that you regret, that you voted Remain for Brexit. Do you think that was a good vote? Do you think you should have remained, or do you think Brexit was a mistake?
I don't regret my vote for Remain, no.
Do you think Brexit was a mistake?
I think it had its negatives and positives, yeah.
What?
Like, are you sure you're not running for a political party right now? Because that was the most politician answer I've ever heard in my life. Do you think that on net was Brexit a mistake?
Every decision has trade-offs that are positive and negative.
Remember what I said earlier about saying words that mean nothing? Obviously, this is true. But I'm asking, do you think that Brexit on net was a mistake?
I think a lot of people think that Brexit ruined the economy.
I'm not asking what a lot of people think. I'm asking you on net. Do you think that Brexit was a mistake?
I think it had some things that made things worse, and I think it had some...
If you were...
Holy shit, bro. Hello?
And you could choose whether or not the UK voted 51% Brexit or 49% Brexit, what would you push the button to have had them vote? 51% they would Brexit, or 49% and then they would remain in the European Union?
I honestly don't know.
Like, okay. Now, like, again, this is the thing where I'm glad at least I got him to say this, because this motherfucker, every time he's on a show, especially talking to Americans, that every time this guy talks about Brexit, he always brings up, he says this so much, I was a Remain voter, I was a Remain voter, I voted Remain, I voted Remain. Like, that's supposed to give him some kind of centrist fucking credit. But I've never heard anybody actually press him on, like, you know, like, would you still vote Remain today? Do you think Remain was a good vote? Do you think it's like, because this is what I mean when it's like pussy fucking answers. But like, people also do the same thing where they're like, oh, he's not a Russian shill or whatever. Like he's actually super pro Ukraine. And it's like, kind of, but not really. Like, he criticizes Russia in like the expected ways, and he quote unquote supports Ukraine in the weakest ways. But the way this support actually plays out, and the talking points these are all pro-Russian, right? How should we help Ukraine? By breaking away from NATO and the United States of America, because they're not reliable. Europe needs to do its own thing. Why did Russia invade Ukraine? Because they felt threatened by NATO expansion and by the 2014 CIA coup in the country of Ukraine. Like, they're all Russian talking points. It's like meaningless support.
Okay, but so the reason why I asked this question is to illustrate. I asked this question to illustrate how frustrating it is when people like you say things like, "Well, I voted liberal last election," or "I voted Remain." Okay, you don't stand by that anymore, though. You constantly do this thing. No, you don't. You constantly do this thing when you come on stage or you go on your show and you'll say things like, "I used to be a liberal, but the liberals have changed so much. Or I used to be a left-leaning person." I know you've tweeted the dumb picture. I know you've done it. They changed so much, and now
somebody found this like an hour after this went up. Also, thank God, this fucking picture. He tweeted this like 4 times.
Now I have to identify with the center right. I've heard you literally say things like Pommy Robinson make statements to the left on immigration compared to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
He does.
Yeah, okay.
He does.
I've heard you say
That's
things like that, right? But then when
That's
I ask, but then you guys say that everybody else has changed, and then I ask you about your past political votes, you won't defend them. So it seems like you're the one that's changed, which is fine, but you should just own that.
I voted Remain for reasons that were entirely different from the reason that most people voted Remain. The reason I voted Remain is I thought that it would weaken you.
This segment is funny and all, but to be fair, is it hard to imagine his position being undecided on the Brexit question? 1, yes, it is. But 2, if it's undecided, then don't try to claim it as some huge fucking credit to your political centrality or whatever. And just say, I don't know, I voted Remain in the past, so I was like 50-50 on it, and today I'd still be 50-50 on it. He brings up Remain, the Remain vote, he brings that up as a way to establish his centrist creds. That's why he brings that up.
Europe's ability to stand up to Russia. I think I've been proven right on that. And I think the division within Europe has made Europe weaker in terms of its ability to stand up to Russia, and I think we've seen that. So in that respect, I think I was right to vote Remain. What I don't agree with is the narrative that a lot of people like to spin, that Brexit ruined the economy. I don't think that's true at all. If you look at the way other European economies are performing, they're performing even worse than the British economy. So my attempt to give you a nuanced answer is not my refusal to stand by my vote. It's an attempt to use my brain and give you a nuanced answer. Now, in terms of final, did you want to wrap up?
I also hate this weird, annoying, like my unwillingness to answer a question like with any amount of substance is actually just me being nuanced. Like as long as I say a lot of words, it's nuanced. Kill me.
Want to move on?
Yeah, just final thoughts on this topic. That would be great, guys.
Yeah, so final thoughts on this topic. I would just recap and maybe add one other thing. We have had a level of mass immigration into Britain that has been extremely disruptive over a fairly short period of time, that has created an
Disruptive how?
environment in which major cities in this country are effectively no longer the domain of the native population of this country, which is very disruptive to the...
Disruptive how? Is that bad? Is it good? I imagine it's bad in your mind. And maybe I could even agree it's bad, but how? Bad with respect to what?
People who've lived here. I'm not one of them. I myself am an immigrant, but I totally recognize that that's happened.
And then also, again, this thing of like, well, look, I'm an immigrant, guys, so it's actually, like, I used to vote for Remain. I vote for the Liberal Democrat. I'm an immigrant, too, so I can't possibly raise... My kid is the son of... My kid is my kid, so I wouldn't say they're English, so I can't be racist. Like, ugh.
Culturally, there have been some terrible things that have happened. I mean, the example of terrorism and grooming gangs is just one of them. But the failure of integration more broadly has been a big problem, to the point where you now saw in the by-election in Gorton Denton, the Green candidate campaigning in Urdu in a foreign language, in a language not of our country, which I think is a signal of the terrible divisiveness that is we are likely to see in other communities.
Like, imagine if that would have been a talking point, especially because that's one that and I'm sure he doesn't know, because obviously he doesn't do any fucking research, obviously, but also because he just is not capable of having a back and forth conversation. I might agree on like having a national language. I don't know if England does, but like language is a thing that I actually feel like you can make maybe points on, where it's like if everybody in the country is not required to speak the same language, things might get like really fucking weird, really fucking fast, maybe, you know? Like I wouldn't be immediately opposed to that type of idea.
In other constituencies where some communities haven't integrated at all, and I think what that signals is a kind of, a democracy works when people vote on the ideas that are being offered to them, not the ethnic and religious background of the candidate or the things that they will tell them. And I think you're increasingly seeing that. So all of these things are big worries to me. And of course, a lot of this would have been much easier to manage if we hadn't also at the same time had the doctrine of diversity, inclusion, and multiculturalism.
And we throw in our DEI talking points as well. Holy shit.
Which have, instead of creating a monoculture into which people are encouraged to buy in and integrate, have instead created a society in which people are encouraged to see themselves as members of an individual community, which I think is essentially the end of a democratic process the way we've understood it to this point. So I think these are all terrible developments, and if this continues, it will only get worse.
Thank you.
I mean, we introduce new things, so I don't know. I don't know what the monoculture is.
Final thoughts are we going to have?
Well, I mean, when we introduce new concepts like DEI was why Liz Truss, helped 700,000 people come to this country from mainly non-EU places. I just don't know how DEI was the policy there from the Tories that enabled all that mass migration. When we talk about the monoculture,
you're right,
I don't know about the United Kingdom. I mean, Scottish people don't seem like they share a monoculture with English people. I feel like rural people and city people don't have much of a monoculture. I don't know if they've ever had a monoculture. I know in the United States, we talk all the time about the difference between city slickers and the good old people. Like, it's annoying here too, because like insofar as like British culture and shit, he should be able to bury me on substance on this. Like, not with these like vague random allusions to whatever the fuck. Like, I'm not British. I don't know fuck all about it. The only thing I know about British culture is every single day I find out another classic good old American actor is actually some fucking bonger in disguise infiltrating my media. That's the only thing I know about British culture, okay? His inability to engage with any of this critically is just wild to me. In the country and doing the farms and everything, but then we're also simultaneously very concerned about demographic change in the cities. But then at every other point, it seems like the country-related people hate the urban-related culture anyway. So yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting at some point, maybe at some time in your life, if you ever wanted to dive into these issues for real, maybe on your show or with somebody you're more comfortable with, who won't challenge you as much. It'd be interesting to hear a conversation about what do these values look like when you talk about changing culture. And the answer is, well, some people bring crime. That's not culture. Like changing culture would require you to identify some fundamental aspect of the culture of a country, and then to point out to how that fundamental aspect is changing. When you say immigrants are coming and a lot of them commit crime, it's not really a real answer. It's not very satisfying. It's not really getting to the heart of the issues. And
shall we move on to wokeism?
Sure.
So the question is, speaking of culture, has wokeism caused harm to the political climate?
Wokeism.
You want to go first again?
I shouldn't be so eager to go first. I feel confident for my arguments. So I'm always eager to jump ahead, but I should let them trap themselves a little bit more. This is another fucking insufferable fucking topic. Remember, we were given these 3 questions ahead of time.
Yeah, sure. My question is going to be the exact same as the last one. How do we define wokeism? And can we name like 3 woke policies that we think are destroying Western culture?
They hate the policies thing, man.
You're a participant in this debate, so why don't you define them?
Well, the thing is, I can't because your guys' definitions for everything change at all points in time. That's always the issue. That's always the frustrating thing when it comes to fighting.
Who's us guys?
Conservatives.
I'm not a conservative.
I know you say you're not, but the conservative identification of wokeism and the idea that wokeism, whatever that.
Forget about conservatism. Let's talk about wokeness. So, what would be your definition of wokeness?
In the broad,
like woke is a thing that we get extended to centrist as well. But like woke is an attack word, right? Like nobody self-identifies as woke. Like if a conservative wanted to debate a left-leaning person, like you call everybody a fascist, right? Like they say, well, what do you mean by fascist? I don't think you would ask the conservative, like, well, can you define fascism? If it's your talking point, you know? But he knows this.
In a sense, usually it's social issues that are very, very far left of the norm, I guess. But these positions in the United States at least tend to be held by...
Such as?
It might be certain things related to, I mean, trans people are obviously the hot go-to topic for everybody. It might be things specifically related to trans people. It might be things related to, they call it CRT, now they call it, or there was affirmative action, then CRT, then DEI. It might be people who are socialists, about the economy, or whatever that means to people. It really depends on where you're at, who would consider what woke, or what the conservative boogeyman of the day is.
I don't know what the conservative point of view. So your point of view is that wokeness is about trans people and DEI?
That seems to be the case when I look at.
So that's your definition.
I don't define things as a wokeism. It seems like a really vapid, stupid definition. I would just talk about the issue or the policy itself.
I guess your issue is with the topic of our debate then.
Well, no, because I think that you obsessively talk about wokeism, so it's probably a good thing for us to have a discussion.
I'm asking you to define it so that instead of continually asking me questions and then pretending not to understand my answers, we actually address your argument. So
if you feel like there's an answer I don't understand, you can feel free to ask me to explain your answer. I can do it with ease. They're very simple. You only need the cognitive power of like a 9-year-old to understand them. So
your definition,
like this guy has done like. This is just unserious at this point. This guy has done so many shows, so many podcasts, uttered so many times about how wokeism is destroying the West and wokeism is like, do you not have a concept for this? Like, I don't defend whatever the fuck wokeism is. I don't talk about wokeism or the woke whatever. And if well, there are times obviously where I do, but usually when I do, it's with response to whatever like a conservative is talking about.
Wokeness is? Again, just coming back to so we're clear about what we're discussing.
The median view on social beliefs, the things that are to the furthest left, or the most progressive, the most college student-y, young things, they tend to be around like gender things or minority issues or LGBTQI, whatever status. These tend to be like things that people identify as woke.
So what we're discussing in this section of the debate is whether far-left politics and progressivism has ruined society. Is that the discussion?
Yeah, sure.
What would you mean?
The question was on wokeism.
Right.
The issue is...
And I got you to define it as far-left progressivism.
Yes. So, insofar as I would define it, I don't see it as a major threat, at least to the United States, because I don't think that the people that tend to hold these views have any real political power. It tends to be college kids and people on Twitter. But conservatives are very concerned about this, and they talk about these issues all the time, and then they use them to power their policies that end up being even more regressive than the super woke stuff was progressive, because it wasn't really manifesting in a real way anyway. And now I have a country where half the states don't really...
Why did you go to first to get you to do this definition? Yeah, he might have. I just didn't even consider that his position could be so hollow. But maybe after the immigration thing, maybe I should have been a little more clear to that. Like, he spent so much time obsessively talking about woke stuff. I guess I could have just defined it. I guess as a trap for him, I could have defined woke positively. I could have said, well, woke referred originally to being aware of some social inequities that the majority of the population might not be aware of, if not for people making a conscious effort to bring it into the public conscious. I guess I could have given a definition like that. And then I don't know what his response would have been there. I don't know if he would have fought me on that definition, or if he would have just agreed then that wokeism is not destroying the West, because that definition, I have no idea. I truly don't know.
They have the ability to get an abortion for women because people thought that every 4-year-old was being forcibly transitioned to another gender. It's my issue with it.
Well, that's your country and your issue. But just coming back to our definition so that we can know what we're discussing. What you're addressing is, has far-left progressive politics had a negative impact on our society? That's how you understand this discussion, correct?
Jesus
Am I going to say yes here, and you're going to go, I'm glad you agree that wokeism is far left?
No.
Yeah, I guess that would be my understanding of this discussion,
okay.
yes.
So,
yes.
Good. Now we know what we're actually discussing. So, in terms of its impact, I mean, one of the most obvious things, and I brought
What is your definition of wokeism?
I agree with you. I agree with your definition.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think it's okay to agree on a definition to have the discussion, right?
That's why I did it, so that we could agree on the definition.
Oh, okay. It felt a little bit more passive-aggressive than that, but my bad.
Well, that's your bad. Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
I've worked out the tricks that you play, and so I've trapped you in your own logic.
And to be clear, the trick that I just played was asking you for the definition of a term.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right,
that's
my bad.
right.
I know that we don't like that here.
Exactly
okay, my
right.
bad. Okay, go ahead.
That's exactly right.
So stupid.
Because what you do is you don't define it yourself, so that you can then argue with my definition for half an hour, and so we can't have the actual debate. Now be quiet, and
I'll define my terms if you want. Well, I'm only going to be quiet.
Like, this being upset about, like, this is one of the hallmarks of, like, low IQ fucking thought. Is this, oh my God, what a great shot. But now I'm going to die to these things. Is being upset when somebody asks you to define your term so that you know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, how are we supposed to have a meaningful conversation if we don't have an agreement on the fucking terms of the debate, right? But the reason why is because these guys don't ever have critical conversations. It's just a bunch of, oh, fuck me. It's just a bunch of, like, yes ands constantly. Like, that's it. People are making empty, bullshit-ass statements. This motherfucker's shooting at me. Oh my god. Oh shit. My king. I don't think I can get out of here. Jesus fucking Christ.
Let's head home at the cliffside air shaft.
Okay. There are so many of these fucking podcasts I listen to. Whenever I say things like, I don't know why, like, I don't know how people can listen to this shit. It's because all of it is so, like, empty and nothing. Like, I think that blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, yeah, I think blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, yeah, I think blah, 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 blah. Oh, yeah, I think blah, blah, blah. And, like, nobody's actually saying anything of substance. And even when somebody says something that will be, like, directly contradictory to the other person, like, the whole show is just a bunch of yes hands. Like, someone will say, like, I think that the guitar is the best instrument ever invented in the entire universe. Every other instrument sucks. And the guy's like, oh, wow, cool. Yeah, I get that. I actually think the flute is actually really cool, and I think it's even better than the guitar. Because I think it's the best instrument. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, for sure, yeah, definitely. I really like the number of, 46. And it's like, oh, I think numbers are actually super gay. I like letters. Like, oh, yeah. And it's just like this back and forth. Like, what the fuck are we? It's like the most, like, it's like a circle jerk, but they miss the dick on both sides. They're like circle jerking the air to each other, but they both manage to come somehow. It's just like the dumbest fucking empty, hollow, bullshit-ass conversations I've ever heard in my entire fucking life. And it's like, that's what he wanted here. It's like, you're playing a trick. What is the trick? By trying to get me to define a word. It's like, what, so we're not going to have a real fucking conversation? Like, what the fuck are we talking about right now?
I'll define my terms if you want me to, but wokeism is term you guys use.
It took me about 10 minutes to get you to define woke. I'm glad we did it. Now we can have the actual discussion.
Definition. I'm glad I can
now we can have the
one.
actual discussion.
Okay.
Now we can have the actual discussion. So if your understanding of the question is, has far-left progressive politics made our societies worse? I completely agree with your definition, and I agree with the premise of the question that it has made things worse for a number of reasons. I mean, the trans thing became a big talking point because it's so ridiculous, not because it's so hugely actually impactful on society, although I do think a small number of children being given puberty blockers and an even smaller number of children being given gender transition surgery is a terrible thing that's happened. I think more broadly, though, I mean, one of the most obvious examples is we now have a society which has, I mean, it's not codified and it's not expressed in, in the, like, no one says publicly we now discriminate against these groups of people, unless occasionally they do. So, for example, the Royal Air Force in this country, when they were in a recruiting drive, they were really struggling to get pilots. And there was a woman there who got fired from the Royal Air Force because she refused to go along with the policy. Her supervisor said to her, we're not hiring any more useless straight white men. She said, I don't agree with this policy, it's discriminatory, and she was fired. We've had a system of anti-male, anti-white...
This goes into the thing, I don't know, I need to find a way to more succinctly illustrate this. Saying that a bad thing happens that was a bad thing is different than saying that there was a policy to make the bad thing happen, right? So apparently in the Royal Air Force, I guess there were some quotas that they were trying to hit in terms of recruiting certain races of people, or at least the way that it was expressed. So I don't know ultimately what the decision is on how many people this impacted. I know there were at least a few people that were white pilots that were impacted, but like to say that, like, they were trying to hit racial quotas for diversity stuff or whatever, that is a meaningfully different statement than they were no longer allowing white people to join the Air Force. I think it was a woman who, I don't even want to misquote it actually now, because I don't want to give more credence to their side than they deserve. But it seemed like from what I was reading, it was a bad thing where there were some, I think, white pilots who would have made it in otherwise, but the person was worried about like hitting some kind of quota, so it ended up not happening. But there was no RAF-wide policy to not hire white people. Like it's a huge claim. It's a tremendously crazy claim. Or I say crazy, but it's just that's a really, really, really crazy, horrible, bad, terrible fucking thing. Now the thing that actually happened is also, I think, bad, but it's of a much, much, much smaller magnitude. It's much, much less impactful. Still bad, but not of the same
Just ask a quick question.
No,
so if I were to look
I'm not
that up,
finished
the
yet.
Royal Air
I'm
Force
not
had a
finished
policy
yet.
of not hiring straight white
I'm
men.
not finished yet.
Is that true?
I'm not finished yet.
Okay. I have a feeling it's not, but okay.
So you can. This is something you can look up. It was covered extensively in the news in this country. I probably wasn't covered that well on Wikipedia where you did the research, but
No, but on the Sun and all of your favorite publications, I'm sure they talked about it a lot.
No, actually, it was covered extensively across the mainstream
and what they
media.
covered was that the Royal Air Force
Can
was
I
not
finish
hiring
my
straight
points?
white men.
Stephen,
Well, you seem to respond to some things, but not others.
Well,
so that wasn't the policy. I can tell because you're not answering.
That was the policy that was pursued by the Royal Air Force. It was revealed by this whistleblower who was fired for revealing it. The BBC in this country has internships that are not available to white people. We effectively have created a system of passive, tacit, sometimes open discrimination against different groups of people. And one of the reasons that the sort of reactionary sentiment, which you try and paint me as representing, which I don't, is rising in this country and rising quite quickly, including ethno-nationalist sentiment, is because of this. And the reason I opposed wokeness from the very beginning and far-left progressivism from the very beginning was that it was obvious to me that the number one consequence of pursuing radical left-wing progressivism and racial essentialism of this kind would be that the majority population would begin to pursue identity politics for itself. If you discriminate against white men and say so openly, it's going to be a very short period of time before white men look at that and say, well, if we're now picking people for jobs based on skin color, I am the oppressed minority now, or I'm the oppressed majority now, we need to look after my interests. And the reason you see the reactionary forces rising both in America, in the rest of Europe, and in this country is precisely because they've been pushed into this corner by woke leftists. And that is one of the major ways that this movement has damaged our society, as I predicted all along.
So I would say the least impressive thing about conservative predictions is that typically what they'll do is they will build their own enemies, they will cry about the enemies, and then when they manage to convince everybody else that those enemies are real, and then those people react against those enemies, they try to say that, well, it was the enemies in the beginning that caused this particular problem to come about. And I guess the issue that I have is, when it comes to woke-related stuff, it's hard to find ever, like, what are the particular DEI policies or affirmative action policies that we're talking about. It's always some vague allusion to airlines don't want to hire white pilots, or they lower their standards for black pilots, or these things that tend to not exist when you actually dig into them now. I don't know, maybe it is the case that the Royal Air Force actually had a policy of not hiring straight white men.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into that. I'm curious about that. I have a feeling
so his claim here is a very strong claim of they do not hire white men, right? This is a different claim. Even if there was a strict quota in place, that would still be a different claim than the one that he just made, but okay.
I look into it, it's going to be completely untrue, like most of the stuff that you bring it up. But I'll look into it. Maybe it was true. And, if it is, I would say that's not a good thing, that you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. Okay. But I guess the issue I have is, when we talk about magnitude, I think you said earlier that sometimes people fixate on these issues a little bit too much, but it's because they're such common sense issues. When I look at the United States right now, and I think how many trans people are there, how many people are doing stuff related to trans people, the number of people is incredibly small. It's like 1%. And the idea that would somehow cause so much of a population to become reactionary that, as of 30 minutes ago, I'm pretty sure Iran has tried to bomb like 7 different countries because we have a president who is a madman who is going on a rampage against the entire world insofar as trade and bombs goes. I just can't, in my mind, rationalize how so many of these smart people I'll say in the center like you who say, well, I can obviously identify that this is a problem. Why don't you ever identify any of these super obvious problems on the right, or any of the super obvious problems that are reactionary to the other things that were reactionary, especially when the issues in the United States on the right are represented through every single pylon of power that the conservatives have, and on the left they're in colleges and on Twitter and Facebook and sometimes in AI world on Sora.
This is an article from...
Because it was looking this up and then he finds this, I don't think he has to respond to a single thing I just said. I should have restated all of this.
Sky News. Could you just read out what it says, please?
So I see the AI summary here is...
read out the headline.
Well, I don't know if there's a headline or if this is a...
Read out the headline.
Okay, so this applicants seeking to join RAF described as useless white male pilots in bid to hit impossible diversity targets. Just to be clear, just so I can understand.
Thank you.
Is this headline the same as no straight white men were hired? Or they had a policy of not hiring straight white men? Wait, I'm just so curious. Do you understand the difference between somebody not being hired because they're white? Because I'm not going to say, if you're going to ask me, like, do you think there were ever racist people or even against white people? Of course there are. But you understand there's a difference between the entire Air Force having a policy of not hiring straight white men versus, I guess there was an email where some straight white candidates were skipped over. I don't even know if it was because they didn't meet qualifications or not. They used white men to describe them, but they also called them useless. I don't know if it was because they're white or not. You know there's a difference between those two things, right?
So you don't know the story?
Do you know there's a difference between those two things or no?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, gotcha. Because I was asking for evidence of mine, but you gave me that. So like I said initially, I had a feeling if I looked this up, it wasn't going to be what you presented it as. Yeah, no, go for it.
Okay. So you just denied the existence of this and you questioned it.
I did not deny the existence of that. But go ahead.
Stop talking.
You seem to have a lot of trouble following what I'm saying.
Stop talking.
Okay.
Look, the only way to have a conversation is when people talk in turns.
No, it's not. The only way to have a conversation is when two people are making a good faith effort to understand each other. My question was, did the RAF have a policy of not hiring straight white men?
Yes.
You showed me an email that said there were applicants that were rejected that were called useless white male pilots or whatever.
They rejected applicants in a bid to hit diversity targets, which means they discriminated against white men in favor of other groups.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that in this particular email, but that doesn't mean that they were not.
Even this statement is not as strong right? Like if you were to say there is a policy to not hire black people at a company, that's different than saying black people are discriminated against in hiring, right? But like these are completely, almost qualitatively different types of statements. Holy shit.
Not hiring any straight white men.
I didn't say they were not hiring any straight white men.
Literally just said they had a policy of not hiring any, like, and then he pretends that this is his point all along. And then I think I asked him for clarification like 3 or 4 times where it's like, you said that they are not hiring them at all. They're not allowed to hire, but they don't hire them. It's like, well, no, I didn't say that. And then he backs up to the weaker version of the statement.
But that doesn't mean that they were not hiring any straight white men.
I didn't say they were not hiring any straight white men. I said they were discriminating against them in favor of other people to hit diversity targets, which were described by the people who were...
Like, that statement, if you would have started off with that statement, there's no way I would have disagreed with that right off the bat. Because that's a much... First of all, there were prior assumptions on the truthfulness. That sounds like a thing that could happen. Absolutely. And again, this is like an issue where I'm probably your friendly left guy where it's like some woke DEI shit or whatever I think is kind of cringe. Even if it doesn't wind up a policy at the end of the day, some of it just seems very fucking cringe to me. But I'll readily admit that. But if you're going to say there are times where people, because of some quota thing, are discriminating against white pilots, it's like, okay, I'm not going to immediately say that's bullshit. But the statement that you made like 3 times is no white pilots were hired because of DEI or whatever. It's like, that's a much, much more stronger statement. But then he retreats to this weaker position and then defends this.
Charged with recruiting them as impossible to hit. In other words, they were deliberately undermining both the efficacy and the fair treatment of people in their hiring policies because of DEI.
Okay, so this...
Do you get it now?
The position you have now, yes. And that sounds more realistic, that there might have been a hiring policy that favored some groups of people that weren't white over the white ones to cause them to get hired when it might have been in a blind trial the white people would have been hired otherwise. Yes.
Right.
Do you understand that that's significantly different than you saying the RAF had a policy of not hiring straight white pilots? First of all, I don't know what straight had to do with... Are you bi? Do you get like a special application on the...
Well, I'm sure you'd want to know the answer to that question. But
I wouldn't, because I would never become British. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I think look, this is why I brought it up, because the idea of a conversation is good faith. But if you question anything that I bring up that you don't know anything about, and then say, well, I don't believe that this happened, and I present you evidence that it did happen.
Like, also keep in mind, this was your strongest example? Was a single instance of, or not a single instance, I think there were multiple pilots that were discriminated against, but like a quota system for trying to increase diversity hires in the RAF, which again might be bad. I don't even know if I would disagree that this is a bad thing, but this is your huge, like, why people are so reactionary right now, right? Like, if you were to ask me, I don't know if you asked me a single question this entire fucking debate, actually. Like a single one related to like something substantive, like policy or whatever else. I don't know if he asks me a single fucking thing this whole debate. But if you were to ask me, okay, Destiny, you think that Donald Trump is so fucking bad. Well, what are your issues, right? How many hours do we have where I can give you like earth-shattering, truly unprecedented extensions of singular, not even executive authority, but presidential authority that go so far above and beyond anything that I'm aware of in like all of U.S. history. But then like tasked to explain like why the fuck are we okay with like people like Farage or Reform or Trump, and it's like, well, the RAF, there were emails leaked where the RAF. Yes, climb. That's what I wanted to do. Fuck me. Where the RAF like failed to hire some white pilots. Dude, this is your go-to story? This is your huge, massive fucking bigly scandal right here? Like, seriously?
And then you still continue to deny it. I don't see how we can have an actual debate. Now, I never said the RAF hires 0 white pilots.
Oh my God. Like, seriously?
I said is the policy of discriminating against white men, which has been rife in the rest of society, has created the situation where a lot of people rightly, understandably at least, feel antagonistic about it. That was one of the biggest threats with wokeness, and that is one of the biggest challenges where we are. All your points about...
That's one of the biggest challenges? That's your example?
Trump and all the rest of it, I don't see how it's relevant, and I think we're going to have a section on Trump coming up. I made the point, I think, about trans...
Oh my God, I didn't even see... because I couldn't see the future here. I like how he puts that off to where it's like, we have a section on Trump coming up. But by the time we get to that question, his whole thing is, I don't know anything about U.S. politics, so I can't even speak about Trump. What a king, dude. King debate strategy.
Trump and all the rest of it. I don't see how it's relevant, and I think we're going to have a section on Trump coming up. I made the point, I think, about trans, that I think trans, I mean, the insanity of some of the things we've been asked to believe, which is like, you know, if you say you're a woman, you automatically become a woman. I think people rightly balk against that because it's ridiculous. Doesn't mean it's the number one issue. I've never said it's the number one issue. In fact, I pointed out it's quite a minor issue in terms of the number of people affected by it. But
I'm just curious, in terms of your shows, of all the social issues you talk about, do you think that the trans stuff is at the top 3?
I really shouldn't ask this question without... I need to consume a huge amount of their content. But the problem is there's no way. I'm never watching fucking 100 hours of this shit. That's got to be against like the Geneva Convention on Human Rights or whatever. Because he could just lie, and I have no way of actually proving that. Which he does kind of lie about the guests he has on later on. And I don't know every single fucking guest. Although I was given a list, I should have memorized it, of like the top 10 people that he's had on most frequently. Spoiler alert, they're basically all conservative.
Well, I don't think we've talked about trans for like a year and a half. Maybe 1 or 2 episodes in a year and a half.
Like, there's no way that's true. Did he bring trans stuff up even in the Hassan conversation? There's just no shot. There's no way. But then he also like was comfortable blatantly lying about that, the picture, the Twitter picture. Like he just blatantly fucking lied about that. Triggernometry YouTube. Search trans. Is there a way to sort by, or am I... Because these are all pretty old. Or wait, what's that one website? Fuck. The website. The one website. Who has it? Oh, film, yeah. Triggernometry. This one. Trans. What do you do? Automatic subtitles or manual subtitles? Automatic, I guess. I am human. Jesus. Find everything that fits inside the item in the reference. Okay, that looks like a backpack. These should fit. Probably not the tree, and maybe this. Oh, Jesus. Okay, headphones, all right. Okay. How do I sort by... Sort by date, new to old. Okay, so
maybe your child is trans, which happens. I talk in the book about one of the biggest family vlogging channels in the UK.
Okay, so she's bringing it up. What about over here?
So she said, quote, there are 2 sides to the trans debate. That was used in an official investigation against her.
This trans whole thing is they, like, you're very clearly a male, biologically, and you're allowed to dress like a woman because you're a grown-up. We'll let you dress however you'd like. Trans ideologies, everyone wants to be the reasonable thing. They're always claiming they're the reasonable thing.
Trans delusion, all of these things were like, did we really buy this? COVID. I mean, think about it.
Wait, why did he imply? Was COVID fake? Wait, what was that?
Like, did we really... Trans delusion, all of these things were like, did we really buy this? COVID. I mean, think about it. It was like...
I feel like he's making fun of him, but he's not. These are all real.
Trans ideologies.
What are the dates on these vids? I'm just going through the ones from this year. So over the past... So those 5 are from the past 3 months. And then from 2025, all of these through 2025... Everything on the screen right now is from 2025 onwards. Jesus Christ. Like a fact check here, if I had a moderator, would have been nice. Holy fuck. Wait, it won't show me more results. Whatever. Oh, no, wait. I think it went to the next page. Okay. So this is like, there's like 100 videos of this, okay? What did he say, 2? 2 times it's come up?
All the social issues you talk about, do you think that the trans stuff is at the top 3?
Well, I don't think we've talked about trans for like a year and a half, maybe 1 or 2 episodes in a year and a half.
Okay.
Oh my fucking God. Really? Really?
Do you feel like for conservatives in general in the United States, do you think that trans is one of the top issues?
And then I have to retreat from the point because I don't know the answer. Oh my God.
Do they talk about? On all the reform stuff that I looked at, trans was listed on a ton of it. It was in the manifesto.
I'm not a Republican conservative in America, so I don't know what they talk about.
I like how he dodges the fact that I brought up my example that I clarified even at the end of that was reform, but okay.
It's up to them.
Well, who you voted for in the last American election?
Who would I have voted for? Donald Trump, for sure.
Okay.
This thing here where you ground things out in examples, I think are really important. I did it with the Brexit thing. I'm doing it here. Like, oh, I'm not a conservative. Oh, okay. Who would you vote for? Like, let's practice that, right? And so then we can get more to so it's not as evasive as they want it to be.
So I don't know. Okay.
Doesn't mean that you're a conservative Republican.
Of course it does. Definitionally so. You're voting for the conservative Republican candidate.
So if you present me with a small pile of shit and a big pile of shit, and I picked a small pile of shit, you go, oh, you love shit. No.
If the vote is between a guy who resembles the furthest right you can be insofar as how they conceptualize the government
and a guy who has no brain, yeah, I'll go with the guy with the brain.
So
yeah.
Kamala Harris, the person who was a DA in California, who was Attorney General in California, who served as Vice President, who was a senator in California, versus Donald Trump, who brags about taking and passing 3 cognitive tests in a month.
Yeah.
The dumb person is Kamala Harris there.
Look, I just explained to you that when you make choices between things, it's not because you necessarily love the choice you're making. If you're forced to choose between 2 things, you choose the one that is the lesser evil, effectively.
Sure. What I should have fought with him there for, I should have asked why he wouldn't have voted third party. And then he might have alluded to a 2-party system, but I don't know the numbers. But then I should have asked, well, why were you voting Liberal Democrat in your constituency? What were they voting, or what were they polling at? Because if he was voting Lib Dem in a constituency that they were polling like 2 or 3%, well, aren't you voted for a third party basically there? It was a protest vote or a waste of a vote there, right? But I don't know.
I'm just curious.
I agree with a lot of Donald Trump's foreign policy.
Sure, of course you do. I know you do, because you're a conservative view on foreign policy. Over the past 5 years, so you do this thing where you're like, well, I have to choose between 2 things. When you've had the same
That's
choice...
what an election is. It's a choice between 2 things.
Well, not in the UK. You can vote between a lot of things. We have 2 parties in the US, but that's okay. I can always educate you on your political system. It's fine. But so my question is, of all these things that you have to choose between, at what case in the last 5 years have you leaned to the left on and would vote for the left on versus the right?
I voted for the left. I voted for a Liberal Democrat at the last election, and it's likely that I will again at the next one. I just told you this.
What about in terms of supporting major issues? How many lib left?
I should have asked him on what policies. That's what I should have asked him on, because I bet his answers here would have been on all right-leaning things. Well, the lib left guy was more conservative on immigration. It would be my bet. But again, I don't know anything about his constituency, so it's hard for me to say.
It's, I guess, do you guys have on your show, or do you talk to or support?
As many as will come on.
Does that mean 0? Or
no.
How many? Okay, because I know, I know Farage has been on a ton. I know you've done a lot of content with Goodwin.
Okay, they're not far left, right? But we've also
right, yeah.
We've also had the co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, who's currently in prison for blocking roads, on the show. We've had Aaron Bastani, who's the co-founder of Novara Media, a far-left news organization in this country. We've had a bunch of. I mean, I could.
Apparently, for some of these people, I don't know. Again, I don't have the background on all these British names. Outside of a cursory glance at things, but I don't know any of these people. But apparently, for some of these, they're socialist, anti-fucking, anti-labor people, basically. Who, oh damn, I was getting fucked. They're anti-labor people, and so the idea that oh no, look, I'm not just conservative. I also bring on far left people. It's like the equivalent of kind of what I said earlier about people who are oh no, I support liberals. I've got Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. here, and it's okay, chief.
Go down the list for ages if you want, if that's what you like.
I've seen the top 10 lists of the people you've invited the most on are all generally
We had comedian Mark Steele, who's a lefty. We had Deborah Francis White from the Guilty Feminist.
I like how he dodges that point that I just brought up there. So that means it is correct.
When you say lefty for these people, they're populist lefties that think that the whole institution is rotted and they don't support actively. So the guy you just described, is he a Labor voter? Would he support Labor? Has he supported Labor?
Which guy? Mark Steele. He's a lifelong Labor voter.
Okay, well then you get credit for that one, I guess. Okay, I haven't seen every episode of.
Even the way that he phrased that could have been tricky. I just don't know. But I think I saw that somebody said Mark Steele was a socialist guy who fucking hates labor. I don't know if that's true or not, or I might be mixing it up with another name. Hey, can we not do this right now? Mark Steele is a populist. Hutch, look it up. Because when you say things that's a huge dog whistle when people say a lifelong thing, because usually what that means is it's a virtue signal. I used to support these people forever, but then now I've turned my back on this party because they've turned their back on me, or some shit like that, right? So maybe a guy who's a Corbyn supporter and now he's well, I fucking hate Keir Starmer and I can't support the Labour anymore. I was a lifelong whatever voter. You hear people say this type of thing. But I don't know the names on this, so I can't meaningfully counter him on these points.
Triggernometry.
Trump was a lifelong Democrat. Technically, or not technically, he was. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, maybe you should stop opining about who we have on then if you haven't seen every episode of Triggernometry.
I don't think I should. Like, really? And that's his counter? You have to see I have to see every single episode? Really? Okay.
Have to watch every single episode of Triggernometry to have a
rough
idea.
You should know who we have on the show regularly before you make a judgment.
I have a decent idea.
No, you don't. You've just demonstrated that you don't.
I haven't seen you. I demonstrated. I don't know every single person that goes on.
Right.
Like you haven't made a Twitter video saying, "Okay, well, call me left wing now." You did make one saying, "Well, fine, I'll be right wing now." Like,
So
there's
you-
clearly you lean in a certain direction.
No,
Clearly,
no.
people perceive you. Why do you think everybody perceives you as being right wing then? If you're so centrist, or you?
Why
lean
does the
left and right?
BBC think I'm right wing?
Why does everybody, on my side at least, everybody perceives you as being right wing?
Because it's convenient for you, as you've demonstrated in the course of this conversation.
In what way?
I'm about to explain. If you just
Okay.
stop talking,
I hope you actually explain.
I will.
Okay, we'll see.
Can you be quiet while I do?
My mic is down.
Okay, good.
Stop filibustering.
So it's convenient to you in exactly the way that you've demonstrated throughout this conversation, where when I make a good point about anything, you say, you conservatives, and then you pivot to talking about Republicans in America, because it suits you, because then you can...
This is extra fucking annoying to me, because from my perspective, I guess I could go back and count it all up. I think this has been way more like British political stuff than American political stuff. And again, the conversation topic was supposed to be about, I would argue, either the West broadly or about America, given that, like, one of the questions about fucking Trump. And for him to say that, like, I'm pivoting to talking about the Republicans all the time, I think I end up bringing, what did I bring up the Republicans for? There was one thing I did for, it might have been related to a Trump thing, for, like, why are there so many reactionary people? Like, we've played on his home ground quite a bit here. We haven't really done much American politics at all, which is very, very, very fucking annoying to me that he accused me of constantly pivoting to the Republicans, but whatever.
Argue against things you came here prepared to argue against, instead of arguing with what I'm actually saying.
What is the point you feel like I haven't? First of all, I'm pretty sure the debate topics were related to America. Number one.
Were they?
They were. Number one. That's okay. Number two, what is a question that you feel like you've said that I accused you of being a conservative and then I pivoted and I didn't respond to your point?
Every single thing we've discussed.
Name one of them.
Like this, like, excuse me, what? Like, if you, come on. Are we being real? Are we being for real? Is that a for real thing right now?
Every single thing we've discussed.
So you can't
immigration.
What did I not respond to for immigration? You didn't bring up a point. You said a bunch of descriptions. You're like, well, this is true, and then that was
You
it.
keep talking over me, which means we're not actually having a discussion.
Because I'm asking you for an example, and you're trying to
giving you
filibuster.
one. I'm about to give you one if you just
Okay,
stop interrupting.
one point that I didn't respond
Can
to.
you just stop interrupting?
Go ahead, give me the point.
Can you just stop interrupting?
I'm not even interrupting. I'm waiting for you to
Not
finish.
interrupting means when I say something, you don't talk after that. Can
Ever?
you do that now?
Okay. Can I fuck up? Okay, go ahead.
There you go. On every single thing that we've discussed, immigration, national identity.
Just one thing. You're not having a conversation. I guess I didn't expect you to check out this early, but I'm asking, is there a...
Hold on, don't move, buddy. I'm grabbing the thing. Damn, this guy is super high. You have a survivor kit?
No. Honestly, I don't have much, to be real. So if I go...
Is that Ice Poseidon?
Not the end of the world. I appreciate you, though.
I got you, buddy. I got one more bandage. You're okay.
single point you feel like I haven't responded to with substance, and you're saying everything because you realize you don't have
an
an
answer. If you want to have
for
this
that.
conversation by yourself, you're welcome to.
Oh,
but
I feel like I am.
You are, yeah.
I know
You
I
are.
am. Yes,
You
I
are.
know I am. I feel that way. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to the
'Cause
copy pasted
you're-
talking points,
you're
and I
not-
can't get an actual answer out of you for anything.
I got routed by the dude that left already.
I can give you better answers if you're looking for them. Yeah. It's crazy to me that you guys cry about wokeism and snowflakes and all this stuff so much, but like, you guys do it all the time. You made the claim that I'm avoiding answering any of your arguments because I'm calling you a conservative. I think you are a conservative and I label you as such, but I'm not dodging your arguments. There's not a point you brought up that I refused to address. That's why I asked you for an example of one, and you weren't able to give one. And that's fine if you're not able to give one, but then don't continue to filibuster and make the claim. Just say, okay, well, I guess maybe that was an unfair thing I said, and here's a point that I'm going to make that I would like you to address. That would be the time where you would say, here's a thing that I brought up. You pivoted and you didn't address that particular thing. That would be a thing you could do if I was actually dodging and pivoting from all your points.
Bruh. Oh, somebody drops it. You got this, Konstantin.
What was that? I can't hear any. You're going to have to shout louder.
And then he tried to talk about self-soothing. Then he starts shouting to the audience member for a debate out there. Oh my God.
Russian agent. What does that mean? So you're saying that because I'm from Russia and I have opinions you don't like, I'm a Russian agent?
Why are we debating the crowd right now? I'm still here.
Is that what
Can you
you're
not
saying?
have Can you really not answer my questions
I'm
that
just
much?
not very clear. Is that what you're saying?
Let's not yell out questions from the audience. Let's not get into that. Let's try to let the dialectic get back on track.
Dialectic.
Simple question. What do you feel like I haven't addressed?
Every single thing that we've discussed.
Bruh. Oh my God.
Okay, let's run it down. So you said I didn't address immigration, right? My point on immigration is that you guys have fear-mongered about immigration, and every single policy that you've tried to enact has failed.
Every time you say you guys, you've already lost the argument because you're not arguing with me.
Okay, well, I asked you for a clear stance on whether or not you thought Brexit was good on net. You literally said you would not answer the Brexit question. When I asked if you were God, you could push a button. You literally said, well, I don't know, I couldn't do that.
I said immigration. Immigration, not Brexit, immigration.
Sure, well, Brexit was a part of the immigration argument, right?
Not for me.
For the majority of the... Oh, my God. I'm sorry, it's okay. What question did you even pose to me with regards to immigration that you feel like I didn't answer? I don't think you even posed a question to me.
I don't think you did.
What you failed to do. We started this bit of the conversation. Just listen. Okay, just put the microphone down and listen.
I'm listening.
Put the microphone down for a moment and listen.
I'm gonna hold it right here.
Now you carry on. I'm not going to talk if you keep interrupting me. I'm not interested in this.
I'm not interrupting
whatever
you.
This is. You are.
I'm literally not. I'm asking you a question. You just refuse to answer. This is the game. How did I do it again? I'm asking you a clear question. You can't give me an answer.
I'm not going to talk to you unless you listen to what I'm saying as well as me.
Like he could have said what he needed to say by this point. He's just running down the clock. Oh my God.
Listening to what you're saying.
I am listening.
Okay, good. So we started this bit of the conversation, right? Talking about the exchange that we just had. That's what we were talking about, right? And you made your points, and I tried to make my points, and you keep interrupting and talking over me, right? I've addressed immigration, and I've addressed every single other thing that you brought up. And the moment I do, what you do is you say, well, you conservatives say this, you conservatives say that, in order that you can then argue with things that I haven't said. And that is exactly what you've done throughout this whole thing. So when you ask me, why do people say that you're a conservative? It's because it's much more convenient for them than addressing the arguments that I'm actually making. And you've demonstrated that throughout this entire discussion. That answers your question.
Okay, what is the argument that you're making with specificity to immigration? What does Konstantin's ideal immigration policy for Great Britain look like? And who in the past have you supported their vision for immigration to the United Kingdom?
Sorry, because I jumped in, which I shouldn't have done. Second part.
Okay.
Second part.
Yeah. No, who have you supported historically over the past 10 years? Whose idea for immigration, I guess, have you supported policy-wise, politician-wise? Who would you support right now? What is your ideal vision for immigration to the United Kingdom?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So my ideal vision for immigration in this country would be something like probably 40 to 50,000 people a year, highly selective, which means that you really have to qualify in terms of your skill set, ticking all sorts of other cultural compatibility, age, and so all sorts of other things that basically mean you're likely to be a very positive net contribution to the country.
Like, somebody can tell me if I'm using this correctly. I think this is still begging the question, right? What kind of immigrants do you want? Immigrants that would be positive to the country. Yes, that's what positive means. That's what means. That means the same thing. No shit, Sherlock Holmes.
You're probably going to have the ability to earn and pay more tax than you receive in benefits over your lifetime. You're unlikely to commit crime. You're unlikely to become a terrorist. You're unlikely to do things that we wouldn't want you to do. You would be highly selective. I think I would definitely prioritize immigration from people, from countries, not from countries really, but from people who already speak the language, who maybe have a cultural familiarity. So Hong Kongers are a good example of this, right? These are people who are formerly part of the British Empire, speak the language. They're able to come over, integrate very easily. And
okay, I didn't bring this up because I don't know if there's some kind of technicality that would exclude this, but like, does India not count as that? Is that for some reason would that not be a part of the former British Empire? I don't know.
Make a good contribution. So something like 40 to 50,000 people a year. But again, you know, it's a democratic thing. So if the British people vote to have zero immigration, that's their right. If the British people want to have 300,000 people come a year, that's their right. The part of the problem we've had with immigration in this country...
Wait, can I ask just...
No, just let me just finish this bit and then you can ask whatever you want. A part of the problem we've had with immigration in the last 30 years is, despite the fact that people keep voting against mass immigration of the kind that we've had, they keep voting for parties that promise to reduce it in 2010, in 2015, in 2016, in 2017, in 2019, and in 2024. In all of those elections, immigration was a major issue, and the British people overwhelmingly voted against what we have today. Despite that fact, we've actually had the opposite of what they voted for. So I want managed, highly selective, low numbers, high compatibility, and I want it to be in line with the democratic wishes of the British people.
Okay, so then a statement and then a question. So I would argue that the reason why people have voted for lower immigration and they haven't gotten the lower immigration is because I don't think people tend to vote for higher or lower immigration. I think that people vote for where they feel problems are. And I feel like people sometimes scapegoat immigrants as a class of people for why these problems exist. So if housing is high, you vote for less immigrants. Or if the job market is bad, you vote for less immigrants. Or if the NHS wait times are too high, you vote for less immigrants. Or if Brexit is losing too much sovereignty, whatever, you vote for less immigrants. I feel like when it comes to these issues, the immigrants become this catch-all scapegoat, which I'm not even saying, and again, you can label me however you want, but like I'm not a woke person when it comes to immigration. I don't think there's anything wrong with being selective against certain groups of people, but But I think that the reason why there's such this pressure for the government, the majority government, to have more immigrants come in is because they know that as much as people might feel a certain type of way about certain types of immigrants, that the collapse of the NHS or the collapse of the education system or the collapse of the local economy is going to be worse than allowing more people to come in and work those jobs. So I guess my question is, and I'm pushing with a degree of specificity because you speak about these issues a lot. When you say selecting for certain values, like what is it? What would that test even look like? When you say selecting for certain values, what are the values that you're selecting for? Number one, and then number two, you mentioned like they have to speak the language and it should be like highly skilled people that can contribute.
Like, it sucks that I feel so uneasy doing this because I feel like a jerk. But like the whole point of the podcast format. This guy's gonna kill me. He didn't hello back. The whole point of being able to have long. What are you looking for?
Camera lens.
Oh my god, you might be in luck. I think there's a camera lens in this drawer. Maybe. In one of these. Oh, right here. Good luck.
Thank you.
Fucking loser. The whole point of having this long-form content that we were promised was more than political talking points. Okay? More than political talking points. So when you say that you want to talk to me about your ideal selection process for immigrants, okay, fine. But like, let's really have a conversation about it. When you say selecting for certain values, what does that look like? Like, is it literally just a test saying, do you believe in Jesus? Or do you think that we shouldn't kill people? Like, what does that test look like? Usually what you're talking about is kind of just like a criminal background check. But you want to go further than that. How would you test that? What does that even mean? Like, again, you've been talking about this issue for years. Literally years, and harping on it constantly. You should be willing to have a conversation of, I would argue, substantial depth into that. If you feel so strongly about this topic you've been talking about for so fucking long.
Net tax positives to the economy. Let's assume that you met the threshold for all of these things. Why cap it at 30 or 40,000? If they can integrate perfectly, if they speak the language of them, why not have like 100 or 200 or 300,000 of these people coming in?
It's a very good.
At this point, you've obviously transitioned into a more nice Lex Friedman Shapiro podcast mode. Do you regret it? It feels like your Midwest nice takes over. Rather than these fucks deserve, but I can relate because it feels, I guess it's just like a police interrogation or whatever. It's like once you feel like the other person has reached like their maximum discomfort level and they're about to start crying, then you just have to like back off and just fucking let it ride for the rest of the conversation. Which I don't know if that's a mistake or not, if I should just keep applying pressure the entire time. I was annoyed because even in my subreddit, some of you retards were like, well, it was really aggressive for the first half, but like the last half, they actually had a good conversation. We did it. The last half is a utterly and completely and totally worthless fucking conversation. But people think it's a good conversation just because both sides are speaking. But like nothing of substance is actually being, you know, critically evaluated on either side. It's just two sides are just kind of like giving talking points that are totally not engaging with the other at that point.
Good question. For me, I am less attached to the numbers. I just think where culturally Britain is at the moment is what...
Like, I'm less attached to the numbers. Bruh, you just gave concrete numbers for what you want your immigration policy to look like. 30 to 40,000, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, like what things, like, let's say somebody meets all your values or whatever. Do you care about the numbers of immigrants at that point? Actually, I don't care about the numbers. It's like, I'm not attached to them. But that was like literally one of the things you gave. That's not like a 100% killer point, but it's just...
That's what the British people would want.
Also, I don't like this thing, too, if that's what the British people would want. To say that, what should the government do? Well, what the people want. I mean, in a democracy, that's kind of always true. But, like, that's not your policy prescription, right? Like, if all the people wanted to import 1 billion Islamic jihadist rapists, would you be okay with that? Would you say, well, that's what the people want?
It's the numbers are... Joseph Stalin said quantity has a quality all of its own, and I think there's a truth to that, which is once you have very large numbers of people coming over a short period of time, it is disruptive for the reasons we've already discussed, and it also can put pressure on infrastructure. The reason, by the way, we haven't had the policy on mass immigration that the British people voted for isn't that. I mean, I agree with you. Of course, there are some people who scapegoat immigrants to explain the problems that society has, and I don't agree with scapegoating immigrants. That doesn't mean mass immigration is necessarily good. One of the problems with mass immigration is it's effectively been used in Europe to cover up the fact that our economies are not growing. Our economies are shrinking on a per capita basis. We are poorer per capita in this.
I looked this up before the debate, and he said this point so many times, like, there's no way he's wrong, right? What does he mean when he said, because the GDP per capita of the UK, I'm pretty sure is higher than it ever has been. I feel like his talking point is dated. Maybe this is just a one he's used for years, and he's never actually updated it, because it was true in 2023 that the GDP per capita hadn't grown, but now, as of at least what was reported for 2024, I don't know what the 2025 number is. It has grown. Like your GDP per capita did grow. But then also, like, what were the mass migration years? Because I see a GDP per capita growth up to 2007, and then it goes down. What happened? Was it the great mass immigration crisis of 2007? Maybe it was. And then I see, 2014 after that, it goes down. I don't know what 2014 was. The Brexit shit was 2016, right? I don't know. Is this like, if I were to look up like mass migration, is that really what's hurting our GDP per capita here? And then also we have, historically huge levels of mass migration of 700,000 per year in, I think it was 23 and 24. But then the GDP per capita goes up. Like, I don't know. I just don't know what he means here. I don't know what he's talking about. Oh, the Euro debt crisis with Greece and everything? Was that 2014?
This country today, our economies are shrinking on a per capita basis. We are poorer per capita in this country today than we were before the financial crisis. And the reason we have...
Oh, I think that is just an old talking point. That's just what it is, yeah.
Haven't had the policy of controlled immigration that people keep voting for, is that bringing in more bodies is the only way politicians can pretend our economy is still growing. That's actually the main reason that this has been happening.
Okay, so again, I guess my question is, what are...
Like, this answer is stupid in so many different ways. First of all, if the average person that immigrates in is poorer than the average native Briton, which I'm pretty sure they are, then while GDP per capita overall might be going down, the GDP per capita of the natives would probably be growing with respect to what it was before, but it's just weighed down by the GDP per capita or whatever of the... Well, but actually what I'm saying is meaningless, because GDP per capita is just the gross domestic product of the country per unit of people, but that... I don't know why the fuck I even engaged with this question, actually. What a weird way to measure anything. GDP per capita, in so far as, like, when you have more immigrants, is it making your average citizen wealthier or not? It really has almost no relationship whatsoever. Or there will be relations, but it's like second or like third or fourth order in terms of how it impacts it.
What are the values, or what are the things that you would select for when you talk about like a values-based test for people coming to the country? Like, what are the
argument was that the influx of immigrants suppresses wages? Then make that argument. But you're going to run into trouble because he's already said that he only wants high-skill immigrants to come in. So does that mean you want to depress the wages of your high-skill sectors? Because remember, some of the, well, from over the seas, this is not a thing I particularly researched, but from my vibing it out, one of the complaints that people make in Britain is your high-skill labor markets are not compensated very well. That a lot of doctors and nurses in the NHS complain about low wages. Your tech sector compensation is very low compared to the United States. Now, the US is like fucking unbelievably highly compensated with regards to those two worlds. So maybe with respect to the rest of Europe, it's not, but remember, if you say that you only want high-skill labor and no low-skill labor, that means that the high-skill labor is also going to be depressing your high-skill wages to some extent, as much as you thought the low-skill ones are being depressed, so...
things you're talking about. And then also just a comment on, the reason why we're bringing in immigrants is to shore up...
Destiny, there would have to enter a new citizen that is more wealthy than the average citizen for the GDP per capita to increase. No, that's not true. GDP per capita just measures the amount of things in a country that's made, invested, or whatever else per person. It doesn't have anything to do with the level of wealth. So 10 people that are all worth $10 trillion could all move into the United Kingdom and not get jobs or invest their money, and the GDP per capita would fall because they're not contributing to the GDP.
Economy.
That's why I'm saying GDP per capita is actually a weird thing to look at and measure here.
A lot of that has to do with the boomer generation as well, that you had a lot of people come back from wars, or stay for wars, I guess, for your guys' case, but in the United States we say come back, and then you had this aging population that had a ton of kids, and now these people have all hit a certain age, so you're kind of this weird demographic age thing, which is why they're bringing in a bunch of younger workers now to kind of fix that issue, because you've got a lot of benefits, and your triple lock pension, whatever else, all these things, Social Security in the United States, yeah.
Well, that's part of it, but the problem is if you're bringing people who are net consumers of tax revenue, then you're not solving that problem, you're making a...
I should have done... I didn't think we would go here on this because it's just so obviously not the case in the United States, but I don't know for the United Kingdom. Is it true that in the UK, the average immigrant is a net consumer of taxes? I don't know the answer to that. If it is, then the welfare and everything is too fucked for that country. It's probably not good. But I also don't know if the average Briton is a net consumer of taxes. That might be the case as well. I don't know what I don't know what the comparison is there between the immigrant versus Britain versus whatever else, yeah. I'm just not sure.
Right, and that's what's been happening in the UK. So when you have mass unskilled or very low-skilled immigration and plus lots of dependents, you're actually bringing in people who are then going on benefits in this country.
Yeah.
which I have no idea why it is in this country that we allow foreign citizens to receive benefits. It doesn't make any sense to me. But what happens is you then effectively are bringing net consumers of tax revenues, and you're making that problem worse, which is why I say it isn't that. It's the fact that politicians are able to pretend that we are growing. I mean, the British economy is growing by like 1.1% or whatever it is. It's still not even growing even on that basis. But the reason they bring in lots and lots of people is so that they can add to the total tax base without having consideration of what happens when you divide that by the number of people, which is you're getting poorer.
Okay, so then let's say that everything
adding to the tax base, but dividing by the total number of people, like these are different things than GDP. This is just like a nightmare. If I wanted to be a huge cogmongler, I should have just started pushing them on like, what is GDP per capita? What do you think that means? Or what is wealth? What does that mean? Or what is... But that's so aggressive. And now we're in our be nice mode of the debate.
Say is true. And I would agree that bringing in people to consume welfare, now I can't speak to the exact immigration schema that you have in the United Kingdom, but let's assume that that is happening, then why not speak to changing those policies? Rather than attacking the concept of like, well, 200,000 people came in and they're all leeching from the welfare, why not just say that, if people want to try to immigrate, we'll do this. However, we're going to forbid people from qualifying for this much welfare. In the United States, you have to make a certain amount of money to qualify for visas or, long permanent resident cards, green cards, or whatever. Why don't I ever hear a conversation about that, changing the incentives?
Well, that's exactly what I advocate for all the time. That's literally what I say every time I talk about immigration.
Okay, that's good, but because I feel like I just heard you talk a lot about it. It was just reducing the number, high skilled only, reducing the number, but having like a cap on...
The thing you just described is literally what I advocate for on a daily basis.
Okay, I hear you talk a lot about the other stuff, but maybe I've just happened to miss those things.
The thing that what I believe about immigration, one of the problems is, because for the reasons we've already discussed, when you've had this open border policy combined with, the mantra...
The reason why I know, I think I kind of said it here, but I should have leaned in on harder. The reason why I know he doesn't talk about the other stuff is like, what's going on over there? Is why not bring any of that up? Instead of just talking and obsessively talking about the numbers and the numbers and the numbers and the numbers and the numbers, why not say like, we should reduce like the amount of, I don't know, welfare benefits. I also don't even know what the UK immigration system is like. Like sometimes I'll hear people say this about the United States. The fuck? Sorry, hold on. I hear people talking here. People will say things about the U.S. immigration system where they'll say like, oh, like you should have to have a certain amount of money to come in so you're not a drain on the tax base or whatever. Like we should do that in the U.S. I'm like, that's a really good idea. It's such a good idea. In fact, we already do that. Like that's already a requirement to immigrate to the United States. I don't know for the UK if the immigration requirements are, if they talk about income or money or whatever. I feel like they must, but I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not sure.
Diversity is our greatest strength. You build up a lot of resentment with other people against immigrants. And the reason you see people now on the internet talking about, Britain's been colonized and Britain's been invaded. I don't like that language. I understand why people use it, but I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it is I don't blame people for wanting to come to Britain. Britain's great. Of course they'd want to come here. I believe that what we need to do is change policy.
Okay, but only because you said please. God damn it, these guys make me feel bad.
So that the British government is doing things that are in the interest of the British people. And it's not in the interest of the British people for us to be spending £14 million a day on illegal immigrants. It's not in the interest of British people to be housing, clothing, and feeding people who've come here from other countries who are not British citizens and who are not paying tax here. We shouldn't have foreign nationals in social housing. We should not be providing benefits to foreign nationals. And I say this as someone who was very poor and a foreign national for quite a significant portion of my life in this country. So I advocate for sensible policies on immigration, on what happens when you get here. That is my position, which is why, with all respect, I'm glad a normal conversation has broken out between us, despite the conversation we were having earlier.
I've killed so many people. Why am I in friendly lobbies now? It says day off.
Because this is the reason I don't subscribe to political parties and this sort of team-based agenda, because every political party has lots of things about its policies that I don't like. I don't like lots of things about left and right political parties. I like to advocate for the things that I believe are positive for this country. I think...
Like, why would you... This is like such a fucking high schooler take. Like, this sounds like a high school talking about politics. Like, oh, what political party are you involved in? Bruh. You can't know me. You think you can map everything I believe onto some fucking ideology that I'm going to line up 100% with every single thing, like the political parties thing. Like, this, welcome to politics. This is everything in politics, is you vote for certain parties you agree with. Sometimes you don't agree with them. You don't vote for them. Like, no political party, no sane, rational human being is going to be like the median position of every single fucking, or hold the position that the political party they have represents 100%. Like, this is not, normal human beings don't operate that way. This guy closed the door. Maybe he'll shoot at me first. If he shoots at me first, I'm gonna kill him. Oh, look at this poor dude. Dude, he's like fucking... He's getting killed by like the turret, man. I gotta get out of here. I don't know why I'm in this lobby. They fucking glitched. They glitched me into this one, dude. They're getting mad. Embark got mad that people were claiming that aggression-based matchmaking was super restrictive, and now they're... I think now they just throw you in a random lobby every 10 games. Like, oh, look, oh, no, it's not aggression-based at all.
A positive, carefully selected immigration policy, and then putting the interests of British people who are already here, who are nationals of this country first, is exactly what we should be doing. So
Sure.
I'm glad we agree on that.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily disagree with anything you've said, but one of the issues with the statement of like I don't subscribe to a certain political party, I think that you can have a constellation of ideas that don't map cleanly onto some side, but when it comes down to elections or when it comes down to pushing people to vote in an election, you kind of have to choose a party or you have to choose a person. Things have to collapse into one choice.
Sure.
And I guess, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but the feeling that I get from you, from the things that I've heard you say is that if I were to look at the past 20 years of British politics, and if immigration was a huge issue that I had with this country, I feel like the Conservatives have failed monumentally in dealing with the immigration issue.
Of course.
I feel
just like Labour before them. Yeah.
Sure, but I feel like the prediction was that Labour was going to continue to fail massively on it, and it seems like Labour hasn't failed. It seems like Starmer, for all of his faults, I know you guys all hate him, but it seems like his government has done a good job at cutting heavily into the amount of immigrants coming over, cutting heavily through the backlog of asylum seekers that you had that the Tories refused to deal with. But now, on the eve of all these Tories beginning to look like they're going to flip to reform, I feel like all of the people who are opposed to the mass migration or mass immigration narrative are going to try to support reform when all of these people have seemed to fail to deliver on these reduction of immigration promises over and over and over again, and that's just very confusing to me. I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, let me explain it to you. I mean, it's a fair critique. So, first of all, the Labour, your point about, Labour Party is reduce the numbers, it's not quite how it works, but yeah, the numbers are lower. They're still very high. I mean, this is why I kept bringing up the point about what was happening in this country 30 years ago when I first came here. The numbers of people coming then were about 40 to 50,000 a year, 55,000, I think, in 1996. It's still like 300-something thousand now, which is way...
What does this have to do with anything, bruv?
Too high, particularly given the cumulative impact of mass immigration that we've had. So both Labour and not both Labour, the Labour, the Lib Dems and the Conservatives have all failed on this. All the mainstream politicians have failed on this for the reasons that I gave you.
Sure.
And let me address the point about reform.
The Conservative Party, the Tories failed far, far, far more.
No, it started with the Blair government. So more people came under the Blair government. Let me just...
Why, when people appeal to like anything from decades ago, our political environments change so much. Like, imagine me saying, like, I think that, fuck, I don't even know what fucking policies. Imagine saying, like, I think we should bring back the Department of Education. That's really important to me. And then somebody's like, well, then you should vote for the next Republican. I was like, why? I mean, Trump literally destroyed the Department of Education. And then their response is like, well, maybe now, sure. But like, if you think historically, like George W. Bush doubled the size of the Department of Education, right? George W. Bush did No Child Left Behind. He funneled a ton of money into education. And it's like, okay, but like, what the fuck does George W. Bush have to do with Donald Trump? Like, that's not the party now. Why would we allude to things that happened 20 plus years ago when we're talking about the current political scene? It's such as, this is such, I hate, and don't tell me British politics is different, because I don't believe it. I feel like these are thoughtless responses. These are just like talking points that don't make any sense.
I understand. We're going Boris wave after. It seems like the Tories failed hardcore.
They both failed in exactly the same way.
Okay, so you would say as of right now, if you could flip a coin and have the Tories continue, okay, versus the Labour government, that they would both perform the same on immigration?
I think it probably very likely similar. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
How would we feel that way? What's the evidence of that?
Sorry?
Why would we feel that way? What would we look to in reality that would inform that?
I think the numbers were going to come down, whoever was in charge. I don't.
So now the party has no control. It's just whatever. Like,
I think the numbers this year have come down because the Labour government has come in. I think they were likely to come down anyway. My point is something else. Immigration under both governments is way too high, particularly given its cumulative impact over time. But your point about a few Tories defecting to reform, it's not all these Tories. It's like 3 or 4 people in terms of the MPs. They were.
I don't know what that number is expected to look like come general election time, but my understanding was supposed to be significant, like dozens or more. Is that not true? Like basically anybody who's part of the like the Tory government who wants to be, or part of the Tory party, shadow government, whatever the fuck you would say, the minority people, anybody that wants to still remain in politics is kind of looking to jump ship to reform, was my understanding. But that's like a super vibe understanding. I don't know how true that is or not.
All people who would have been pretty... hawkish about immigration, and when they were in power, tried to do something about it and were prevented from doing anything about it by their own party, which is why they're now moving to reform. So yeah, I voted. I think I voted for the party I voted most for in my life are the Liberal Democrats. Second most would be Labour. I think I might have voted. Yeah, I think I voted Conservative once.
This going back, like, well, here's all my record of voting, and it's like, what? Why does this matter?
And yeah, I've never voted Reform. So,
okay, I guess when I look.
This is it. We watched all this. Okay, the whole last hour of this is just like nothing. It's just this back and forth. But I have to interrupt a lot less because he's literally fucking losing his fucking mind. He said he would vote for Trump. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, and stands by the Brexit vote, more or less, I think. List of Conservative Party defections to Reform UK. The Conservative Party is the same thing as the Tories. Okay, just making sure. We might watch the Warren Smith video, but it's 8 minutes long and this guy drives me. Hold on. It'll depend on, is there music at the end? If there is, fuck it, I can't handle this.
Important here, the fact that
there is, I can't. I'm good. I'm good. Good, whoever left, get the fuck out. All 8 of Reform UK's MPs have been a Conservative Party member at some point. Okay. As of January 2026, 11 former Conservative Party cabinet ministers have also defected to Reform UK. Wait, what's the total number of people? Looks like more than 2 or 3, but okay. Okay. I'm leaving. Good luck. Be careful.